Have you ever noticed how worry sneaks into your life at the quietest moments? You could be sitting in peace, but inside your mind a storm is raging. Thoughts whisper, what if this happens? What if I fail? What if tomorrow brings something I can't handle? Worry steals your sleep, drains your energy, and convinces you that you are weaker than you really are. But here is the truth. Worry is not real. It is only a shadow of the mind, an illusion that disappears the moment you shine awareness on it. Imagine how your life would feel if you were no longer controlled by worry. Imagine waking up each day with calm, clear energy, free from the chains of what if. In this video, I will share with you powerful Buddhist lessons that will transform your relationship with worry and show you that peace has always been within your reach. 1. Worry is an illusion of the mind. Worry is one of the greatest tricks the mind plays on us. It makes you believe that you are in danger, when in truth you are often sitting in safety. Think about it carefully. When you worry, are you usually facing a real problem in the present moment, or are you imagining something that has not yet happened? The answer for most people is that worry is rarely about what is happening now. It is almost always about what might happen tomorrow, next week, or in some distant future that does not even exist yet. This is why Buddhism calls worry an illusion. It is a picture painted by the mind, not a reflection of reality. Imagine you are sitting in your room at night and suddenly you hear a noise outside. Immediately your mind begins to race. You think, what if it's a thief? What if something bad is about to happen? What if I'm not safe? In that moment, your body reacts as though the danger is already real. Your heart beats faster, your hands may tremble, and your breath becomes shallow. But when you check outside, you discover it was only the wind, or perhaps a cat passing by. The danger was never there, but your body and mind suffered as though it was. This is the power of worry. It makes you fight battles that don't even exist. When you look at worry closely, you will see that it is nothing more than thought after thought piling on top of each other, forming a story in your head. The mind says, what if I lose my job? What if people don't like me? What if I fail? What if I get sick? What if I never succeed? None of these things are happening right now, but by imagining them, you give them power. Your mind cannot tell the difference between a thought and reality. It reacts as if the illusion is the truth. That is why you feel stress, anxiety, and fear over things that are not even present. Buddhism teaches that the key is awareness. The moment you stop and ask yourself, is this happening now, in this very second? You begin to see through the illusion. If it is not happening now, then it is only a creation of your mind. This realization is powerful because it frees you from the trap of believing every fearful story your mind invents. When you learn to separate what is real from what is imagined, you find peace. Worry is like a shadow. It looks big and frightening on the wall, but if you turn toward the light, you see there is nothing solid behind it. In the same way, once you bring awareness to your thoughts, you realize that most worries are empty. They are shadows with no true form. This does not mean you ignore real challenges. If something needs action, you take action, but you stop torturing yourself with endless imaginary scenarios that never come true. When you understand that worry is an illusion of the mind, you take the first step toward freedom. You realize that you don't have to believe every thought that enters your head. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. And from that awareness, you can choose peace instead of worry. 2. Everything you fear is temporary. One of the most comforting truths taught in Buddhism is impermanence, the understanding that nothing in life stays the same forever. Everything arises, everything changes, and everything eventually fades away. This truth is not meant to make you sad, but to free you from the grip of worry. When you believe that your pain will last forever, when you convince yourself that your struggles are permanent, worry begins to grow larger and heavier in your mind. But when you see clearly that every experience is temporary, you gain the strength to endure and the wisdom to stay calm. Think about the hardest moments of your life. Perhaps there was a time when you felt heartbreak, when you thought you would never smile again. Maybe you faced a financial difficulty that made you believe you would never escape it. Or perhaps you went through a season of stress, illness, or fear that seemed endless. Yet here you are today, still standing, still breathing, and still moving forward. Those storms passed, just as all storms pass. At the time it felt permanent, but it was not. Life carried you through, and tomorrow carried a new light that you could not see in the middle of your darkness. This is the nature of impermanence. Joy comes, but it does not stay forever. Sorrow comes, but it too must leave. Success rises, but even that changes. Failure arrives, but it cannot remain. Everything is in motion, just like the river that keeps flowing. Worry, however, makes you believe that your situation is frozen, that your suffering is locked in place with no way out. This is one of the biggest lies of the worrying mind. Imagine holding a glass of water with your arms stretched out. At first, it feels light and easy, but if you keep holding it for 1 hour, your arm begins to ache. If you hold it for 2 hours, the pain becomes unbearable. The glass of water has not changed, but the longer you hold it, the heavier it feels. Worry works the same way. The problem may not be permanent, but holding onto it in your mind makes it feel endless. If you learn to put it down, to remind yourself that this too will pass, the weight immediately lightens. Buddhism invites us to reflect deeply on impermanence. If you are in pain, know that it cannot last forever. If you are anxious, know that this feeling will fade. If you are caught in worry, remind yourself that change is the law of the universe. Even the darkest night eventually gives way to dawn. Even the fiercest storm eventually gives way to calm skies. By remembering this truth, you give yourself the strength to breathe, to wait, and to trust that nothing you fear will hold you forever. When you truly accept impermanence, you no longer panic in difficult times because you know they are temporary. You no longer cling desperately to good times because you understand that change is natural. Instead, you find balance, you stop resisting the flow of life, and you allow yourself to move with it. And in that flow, worry has no place to grow because you know that everything, both joy and pain, is only passing through. 3. Your breath is your anchor against worry. When the mind becomes consumed by worry, it often pulls you into a whirlwind of thoughts about the future. Things that may or may not happen, scenarios that may never come true. In these moments, you feel as if you are being carried away by a storm. Your heart races, your chest tightens, and your thoughts become tangled in endless circles. But Buddhism offers a simple yet powerful tool to bring yourself back to peace: your breath. Breathing is the most natural act of life, yet we often ignore it. It is always with you, from the moment you are born until the moment you leave this world. And because it is always present, it becomes the perfect anchor to bring you back to the present moment whenever worry drags you into the future. Worry lives in the mind, but peace lives in the breath. Every inhale reminds you that you are alive right now. Every exhale reminds you that you can release the burden you carry. Think of how your body reacts when you worry. Your breathing becomes shallow, quick, and uneven. This is your body's way of preparing for danger, even though no real danger is present. It is like a false alarm ringing loudly in your mind. By consciously slowing your breath, by inhaling deeply, holding it for a moment, and then exhaling fully, you tell your body and your mind that there is no reason to panic. Your heartbeat begins to calm, your muscles relax, and your thoughts lose their frantic energy. It is as if you are pressing a reset button for your entire being. In Buddhist practice, meditation often begins with awareness of the breath. Not because the breath itself is magical, but because it is always here, always real and always tied to the present. The mind can wander to yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's fears, but the breath only exists now. Each time you focus on it, you are training your mind to return to the present moment, where worry has no power. Imagine you are standing in the middle of a river. The current is strong and it threatens to carry you away, but then you notice a solid rock beneath your feet. You step onto it, and suddenly you are steady again. The river may still rush past you, but it can no longer sweep you away. Your breath is that rock. It does not stop the flow of thoughts completely, but it gives you a stable place to stand so you are not lost in the current of worry. Try a simple practice the next time worry grips you. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and place your attention on your breathing. Inhale slowly through your nose, allowing your lungs to fill fully. Hold the breath for a few seconds, then exhale gently through your mouth. As you do this, imagine that with every inhale, you are drawing in calmness, strength, and clarity. And with every exhale, you are releasing fear, tension, and worry. Repeat this for a few minutes, and you will feel the storm inside you settle. This practice does not remove all of life's challenges, but it changes how you experience them. Instead of drowning in worry, you learn to meet life's difficulties with a calm and steady heart. By returning to the breath, you train yourself to face fear with clarity instead of panic. And the more you practice, the stronger this habit becomes, until eventually your first response to worry is no longer to spiral into fear, but to pause, breathe, and return to peace. Your breath is a gift that life gives you every single moment. It is a constant reminder that you are alive right now, and right now is all you ever truly have. Worry may try to drag you away into imaginary futures, but the breath will always guide you home. And when you live from this place of presence, you discover that worry loses its grip because you are anchored in the only reality that exists, the here and now. 4. Desire and attachment create worry. Buddhism teaches us that the root of much of our suffering lies in desire and attachment. When you look closely, you will realize that worry is often born not from what is happening, but from what you fear losing or not gaining. It comes from the things you cling to most tightly, your possessions, your reputation, your relationships, your dreams, and even the image you hold of yourself. The more you attach your peace to these things, the more fragile your peace becomes, because life is unpredictable and nothing remains fixed forever. Think about it this way. If you tie your happiness to money, you will constantly worry about losing it. If you tie your worth to the opinions of others, you will endlessly worry about what people think of you. If you tie your sense of identity to success, you will be restless with fear that failure might arrive. The stronger the attachment, the stronger the worry. And this is why the Buddha said that clinging is the root of suffering, because when you cling, you are at the mercy of forces you cannot control. Imagine holding a rope tied to a moving cart. The tighter you grip, the more pain you feel as the cart drags you forward. But if you let go, the suffering stops instantly. Attachment works in the same way. The harder you cling to things outside yourself, the more you suffer when life moves in a different direction. Worry grows because you cannot accept the thought of letting go, so your mind begins to create endless scenarios. What if I lose this? What if I fail at that? What if this person leaves me? What if things don't go the way I want? These what-ifs are not signs of reality. They are signs of attachment. Does this mean you should not love, care, or strive for good things in life? Number. Buddhism does not tell you to reject life, but to hold it lightly. It teaches you to appreciate and care for what you have without chaining your happiness to it. Think of holding sand in your palm. If you squeeze too tightly, the sand slips out and hurts your hand. If you hold it gently, it stays with you for as long as it naturally should, without struggle. Life is exactly the same. Relationships, success, Health and wealth are like the sand, precious but never permanent. If you cling desperately, you suffer. If you hold with gentleness and gratitude, you live in peace. Attachment creates worry because it makes you believe you cannot live without certain outcomes. But look at your own past. Have you not survived the losses you once thought would destroy you? Have you not carried on even when life did not go your way? This shows that your true strength does not come from what you cling to, but from within you. Peace has always been inside you. It was only hidden by your attachments. When you begin to loosen your grip, you begin to find freedom. Instead of worrying about losing what you love, you cherish it while it is here. Instead of worrying about what you don't have, you learn to be grateful for what you do. Instead of obsessing over controlling the future, you learn to trust the flow of life. And when you live this way, worry fades because your happiness no longer depends on fragile conditions outside of your control. Attachment is like carrying a heavy bag on your back. The longer you carry it, the heavier it feels, and the more you worry about dropping it. But when you finally set it down, you realize how light and free you can be. Worry, too, disappears the moment you let go. The Buddha's teaching is not about abandoning life, but about releasing the chains that keep you bound. When you live with less clinging, you live with less worry. And in this space of freedom, peace naturally rises within you. 5. Transform worry into compassion. Worry is energy, but it is energy turned inward. When you worry, your mind becomes like a wheel that spins endlessly around the same point. Me, my problems, my fears, my future. It traps you inside yourself and magnifies your suffering, because the more you focus on yourself, the larger your worries appear. But Buddhism teaches that one of the most powerful ways to free yourself from this prison is to transform that same energy into compassion. Instead of being consumed by your own struggles, you redirect your attention toward the struggles of others, and in that act, your own worries begin to lose their grip on you. Think of the last time you helped someone who was in pain. Maybe you comforted a friend, supported a family member, or even offered kindness to a stranger. For that moment, did you notice how your own worries became quieter? That is because compassion shifts the center of your focus from your own suffering to the well-being of others. When you pour your energy into kindness, your mind no longer circles endlessly around your own problems. Compassion creates space inside you, and in that space, worry cannot survive. Buddhism emphasizes that compassion is not only for others, it heals you as well. Worry is like a flame burning inside your chest. The more you feed it with self-centered thoughts, the hotter it burns. Compassion, however, is like a gentle rain that cools the fire. When you step outside of yourself to care for someone else, you stop feeding the flame of worry and instead nurture the seeds of love, patience, and generosity. These qualities soften your heart and calm your mind. Imagine two people walking through a storm. One is focused only on their own discomfort, the rain on their skin, the mud beneath their feet, the fear of falling ill. The other notices a child shivering nearby and decides to cover the child with their umbrella. Though the storm continues, the second person feels lighter because their focus is no longer on their own misery, but on relieving the suffering of another. The external situation is the same, but the inner experience is completely transformed. This is the power of compassion. It changes the way you carry life's difficulties. It is important to understand that transforming worry into compassion does not mean you ignore your problems. It means you stop allowing them to consume you entirely. When you shift your energy outward, you begin to see that suffering is part of the human experience. You are not alone in your fears. Others carry their own burdens, often heavier than yours. By connecting with them through compassion, you not only relieve their pain, but also put your own into perspective. Suddenly, what seemed unbearable becomes manageable, and what seemed endless begins to fade. Compassion also teaches you patience. When you focus only on yourself, you want your problems solved immediately, and this urgency feeds your anxiety. But when you help others, you learn to slow down, to listen, to walk gently. This same attitude begins to reflect back into how you treat your own life. You stop demanding instant solutions, and you begin to carry your own challenges with more grace. One of the deepest lessons in Buddhism is that the walls we build around ourselves create isolation and suffering. Worry is one of those walls, but compassion tears those walls down. It opens your heart and connects you with the world beyond your fears. Each act of kindness you offer becomes a reminder that life is not only about protecting yourself, but also about serving, loving, and giving. And when your heart lives in this space, worry loses its place, because worry cannot coexist with genuine compassion. So the next time your mind is heavy with worry, try this. Instead of asking, "What will happen to me?" ask, "How can I help someone else today?" It might be a small gesture, a kind word, a smile, or a listening ear. It might be something larger, like offering your time, your support, or your care. Whatever it is, you will discover that when you lift someone else's burden, your own feels lighter. Compassion is not only a gift to the world, it is freedom for your soul. 6. Worry cannot survive awareness. Worry has a strange way of convincing us that it is bigger than it really is. When you are lost inside it, worry feels like a heavy fog that covers everything in sight. You wake up in the morning and it is there, pressing on your chest. You go through your day and it follows you, whispering in your mind. You lie in bed at night and it keeps you awake with endless what-ifs. But Buddhism teaches us something profound. Worry has no real substance. It is like a shadow. It looks dark and frightening when you avoid looking at it directly. But the moment you shine awareness on it, you see that there is nothing solid behind it. In truth, worry cannot survive when it is fully seen. To understand this, we must first see how worry works. The mind is constantly producing thoughts, one after another, like clouds drifting across the sky. Most of these thoughts appear and pass without much effect. But when one of them touches on something you fear, you grab onto it. You repeat it, you add details, and you begin to imagine a story around it. A single thought of, "What if I fail?" suddenly becomes a movie in your mind where you see yourself losing everything, disappointing everyone, and being left alone. The mind creates these stories so quickly that you hardly notice the moment they begin. Before you realize it, your body reacts as if the imagined danger were real. Your heart races, your breath shortens, your palms sweat, and your stomach feels heavy. And all of this began from a single thought. Now here is the secret. That thought itself was harmless until you clung to it. Just as a cloud drifting by the sun cannot harm you unless you stare at it and imagine it becoming a storm, a thought cannot harm you unless you believe it and give it power. Worry thrives when you ignore it or when you fight it, because in both cases you are treating it as something real. If you ignore it, it hides in the corners of your mind and grows stronger. If you fight it, you give it energy, because what you resist often persists. But when you look at it directly, with calm awareness, you begin to see it for what it truly is, a passing thought, not a permanent truth. This is why mindfulness is so central in Buddhism. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully aware of what is happening inside and outside of you, without judgment and without resistance. When a worry arises, mindfulness allows you to say, "This is just a thought. It is not reality. It is not permanent. It will pass." By observing it with awareness, instead of reacting to it, you take away its power. Worry cannot survive in the clear light of awareness, because awareness shows you that it is only a visitor, not a master. Let us use an example. Imagine you are preparing for an important job interview. A thought enters your mind. What if I make a mistake? What if I embarrass myself? What if they reject me? Immediately, your body tenses and your mind begins to spin. Without awareness, you believe the thought and you begin to rehearse failure in your head. By the time you arrive at the interview, you are already drained, not because of reality, but because of the story your mind created. Now imagine the same scenario with mindfulness. The thought arises. What if I fail? But instead of believing it, you pause and notice it. You take a breath and say to yourself, "This is only a thought. I don't have to believe it. Right now, in this moment, nothing bad is happening." You bring your attention back to your breath, back to your body, back to the reality of this present second, and suddenly the thought loses its hold. It may return again, but each time you meet it with awareness, it becomes weaker. Eventually, it passes like a cloud, leaving the sky of your mind clear again. Awareness works because it changes your relationship with worry. Instead of being its victim, you become its observer. Think of watching a play in a theater. When you are lost in worry, you feel like you are on the stage, playing the main role in the drama of fear. But when you step into awareness, you move into the audience. You sit back, you watch, and you realize it is only a performance. The actors come and go, the story changes, and none of it is who you truly are. You are the witness, not the drama itself. This realization is life-changing. When you begin to see your worries as thoughts instead of truths, you no longer have to obey them. A thought might tell you, "You are not good enough," but awareness allows you to respond. "That is only a thought, not my identity." A thought might say, "Something terrible will happen," but awareness lets you reply, "That is only a possibility my mind is imagining, not a reality in this moment." Worry feeds on your belief, and when you stop believing it, it starves. Another powerful aspect of awareness is that it brings you back to the present moment. Worry always lives in the future. It says, "What if this happens tomorrow? What if I cannot handle what comes next? What if the future goes wrong?" But the future does not exist. It is only an idea in your mind. The present moment, however, is real, and when you bring your awareness to the present, you often discover that there is no actual problem right now. You are breathing, you are safe, you are alive. The sky above you has not fallen, the floor beneath you has not disappeared. The danger exists only in thought, not in reality. A Buddhist monk once explained it beautifully. Worry is like carrying two burdens at once. First, you carry the present challenge, and then you add another burden, the fear of what might happen in the future. Awareness helps you put down the second burden. It does not mean you deny challenges, it means you stop suffering twice. You deal with what is real, not with what is imaginary. Practical mindfulness exercises can strengthen this awareness. When you notice worry rising, instead of getting lost in thought, pause and ask yourself simple questions. What am I feeling in my body right now? What is happening around me right now? What is the sound I hear, the sensation I feel, the breath I take? These questions anchor you back to the present, where worry cannot survive. You can also visualize your thoughts as leaves floating down a stream. Each worry that arises is just another leaf. You do not chase it, you do not fight it. You simply watch it float by. Some leaves are large, some are small, some are dark, some are bright. But none of them stay forever, and none of them define the stream itself. Over time, practicing awareness changes the very structure of your mind. Neuroscience today confirms what Buddhism has taught for centuries. Mindfulness literally reshapes the brain, reducing the regions associated with anxiety and strengthening the parts associated with calmness and clarity. This means that awareness is not just a spiritual practice, it is also a practical tool for mental and physical health. When you cultivate awareness, worry becomes like a guest knocking at your door. Before, you used to open the door, invite it in, give it food, and let it stay as long as it wanted. Now, with awareness, you open the door, look at it, and simply say, "I see you, but you do not belong here." And then you close the door gently, without anger, without resistance. The guest leaves because it realizes it has no place in your home. Ultimately, the greatest gift of awareness is freedom. You begin to live your life not as a prisoner of thoughts, but as the master of your own mind. Worry may still appear, because the mind will always create thoughts, but it no longer controls you. You see it, you acknowledge it, and you let it pass. In this way, you discover a peace that does not depend on changing the outside world, but on seeing clearly within. And once you experience this peace, you understand the truth of the teaching. Worry cannot survive awareness. 7. True freedom is found in letting go. At the heart of Buddhist wisdom lies one of the most liberating truths. True freedom is not found in control, but in letting go. Worry thrives on control. It whispers to you that if you can manage every detail, plan every outcome, and secure every possibility, you will finally be safe. But life does not work that way. No matter how tightly you hold on, the universe is too vast, too unpredictable, and too alive to bend entirely to your will. When you live in the illusion that you can control everything, you become a slave to worry, because every little uncertainty becomes a threat. But when you learn to let go, you discover a peace that no worry can ever touch. Letting go does not mean you stop caring about life. It does not mean you sit back and do nothing. It means you release the desperate need to control what is beyond your reach. It means you accept that uncertainty is part of existence, and instead of resisting it, you flow with it. In this acceptance lies freedom. Imagine holding a burning coal in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the more it burns, the more it hurts. This is what clinging feels like. Worry is the fire, and attachment to control is your grip. The harder you try to hold life in your fist, the more you suffer. The Buddha once said that clinging is the root of suffering, and nowhere is this clearer than in worry. You worry because you cannot bear the idea of things not going your way. You worry because you want certainty in a world that is never certain. You worry because you refuse to let go. Think of all the things you worry about: your health, your loved ones, your career, your reputation, your future. Ask yourself honestly, how much of this do you truly control? You may influence some of it. You can eat healthy, work hard, be kind, make wise decisions. But beyond that, there are countless forces at play: time, chance, the choices of others, and the mysteries of life itself. When you cling to the illusion of control, every one of these forces becomes a source of worry. But when you let go, when you release the need to dictate every outcome, you feel lighter. You stop carrying the burden of the universe on your shoulders, and you begin to live in harmony with it instead. Letting go also means trusting. Trusting that life has its own rhythm, that change is natural, that endings are followed by beginnings. When you plant a seed, you do not dig it up every hour to check if it is growing. You water it, you care for it, and you trust the soil and the sun to do their work. Worry is like digging up the seed every moment, suffocating it with fear and impatience. Letting go is planting the seed, doing your part, and then releasing the outcome to the flow of life. This trust is not weakness, it is wisdom. It allows you to live with peace even when the future is unknown, because you understand that uncertainty is not your enemy, but simply the way life unfolds. Think back to times in your life when you tried to control everything. Did things always go as you planned? Or did life surprise you in ways you never expected? How many times did you think you knew what was best for you, only to discover later that something you resisted turned out to be a blessing? Life has a wisdom far greater than the limited view of the human mind. When you let go, you make space for that wisdom to guide you. You stop fighting reality and you begin to cooperate with it. But letting go is not always easy. The mind clings because it is afraid. It believes that if it lets go, everything will fall apart. Yet the opposite is often true. Letting go does not mean falling into chaos. It means stepping into balance. It means loosening the rope you have tied around your heart so tightly that it can finally breathe again. It means putting down the heavy bag you have carried for so long that you forgot how light life can feel. One way to practice letting go is through awareness. Each time worry arises, notice the thought. Instead of following it, instead of feeding it, pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? Can I do something about it now? If the answer is yes, take calm, mindful action. If the answer is no, then recognize that clinging will not change the outcome. In that moment, let it go. Release it, just as you would release a balloon into the sky. Watch it drift away and feel the relief of not carrying it anymore. Another way to practice letting go is through gratitude. Worry always focuses on what might go wrong, but gratitude focuses on what is already right. When you take time each day to notice the blessings you already have, the breath in your lungs, the people who care for you, the opportunities you have been given, you shift your mind from scarcity to abundance. And in that space, worry loses its grip, because you realize you do not need to cling to every outcome to be at peace. Letting go also means forgiveness of yourself, of others, and of the past. How much of your worry is tied to old wounds, regrets, or mistakes? The past is already gone, yet the mind clings to it, replaying it again and again, as though doing so could change it. But when you forgive and release the past, you let go of the chains that bind you. You step into the present moment, where life is fresh and new. Worry cannot follow you there, because worry only survives in the places you refuse to release. There is a story in Buddhism about a man who was shot with an arrow. Instead of removing the arrow immediately, he insisted on knowing who shot it, what kind of wood the arrow was made of, what feathers were used, and what direction it came from. While he wasted time worrying about all these details, the poison from the arrow spread through his body. This is how worry works. We get caught in endless questions about why and what if, while life itself is asking us to let go, to respond with presence, and to live fully in the moment we have. True freedom is found when you understand that life is not about controlling every wave, but about learning how to ride the ocean. Sometimes the waves will be gentle, sometimes they will be fierce. But if you keep clinging to the idea that you can stop the sea, you will only exhaust yourself. Letting go means flowing with the tide, trusting that you can navigate whatever comes, and knowing that storms, like everything else, will pass. When you practice letting go, you discover a paradox. The less you cling, the more you gain. By letting go of control, you gain peace. By letting go of fear, you gain courage. By letting go of expectations, you gain freedom to enjoy life as it is. And by letting go of worry, you gain the ability to truly live instead of merely surviving. So ask yourself today, what am I holding on to that is causing me suffering? Is it an expectation, a fear, a need to control something that is beyond my reach? Imagine placing it in your hands, holding it for a moment, and then gently opening your palms to let it go. Feel the weight lift. Feel the freedom enter. This is not weakness, it is the deepest strength, because it takes courage to trust life more than you trust your fear. When you truly learn to let go, you step into a peace that no one can take from you. Worry loses its chains because you no longer hold them. You realize that freedom is not found in controlling life, but in surrendering to its flow with an open heart. And in that surrender, you finally taste the freedom the Buddha spoke of, the freedom that comes when you release clinging, embrace the present, and allow life to simply be. 8. Freedom from worry. comes when you accept the present moment as it is. One of the deepest roots of worry is resistance. The mind constantly argues with reality. It says, this should not be happening. Things should be different. My life should not look like this. Every time you resist what already exists, you create inner tension. That tension fuels worry, because instead of working with the present, your energy goes into fighting it. But Buddhism teaches that peace is not found by resisting the moment. It is found by accepting it fully. Acceptance does not mean you approve of everything that happens. It does not mean you never take action to improve your situation. It simply means you stop wasting energy fighting against what already is. Worry lives in the gap between reality and your expectations. When life does not match the picture in your mind, worry rushes in to fill the space. You begin to ask endless questions. Why is this happening to me? What if it never changes? How will I survive this? These questions are not grounded in the present. They are fueled by rejection of the present. Acceptance closes this gap. The moment you stop insisting that reality must be different, you stop pouring energy into resistance, and suddenly your mind becomes lighter. Consider this example. You are stuck in traffic on your way to an important meeting. The cars are not moving, time is passing, and your mind begins to race. What if I'm late? What if I miss my opportunity? What if this ruins everything? The more you resist the fact that you are in traffic, the more your worry multiplies. But notice the truth. You are already there. Worry does not move the cars. Worry does not change the clock. It only drains you. Acceptance, on the other hand, allows you to take a deep breath and recognize, this is the situation right now. I cannot change it, but I can change how I respond. Suddenly, instead of burning inside, you conserve your energy. You may use the time to reflect, to listen to something meaningful, or simply to practice patience. The outer situation remains the same, but the inner suffering dissolves. This principle applies to every area of life. If you are ill, resisting the fact that you are ill only adds suffering to suffering. If you lose something, refusing to accept the loss multiplies your pain. If you face a challenge, insisting that it should not exist blinds you to the solutions that could move you forward. Acceptance is like opening your eyes in a storm. The storm may still rage, but now you can see clearly where you stand, and that clarity gives you strength. In Buddhism, acceptance is closely tied to mindfulness. To accept the present moment, you must first see it clearly. That means observing your feelings, your thoughts, and your surroundings without judgment. If you are sad, acknowledge, I feel sadness. If you are afraid, acknowledge, I feel fear. If you are in pain, acknowledge, I feel pain. Often, worry grows because we deny these truths. We push them away, pretend they are not there, or cover them with distractions. But denial only makes them stronger in the background. When you face them with acceptance, they begin to loosen their grip. You realize that feelings are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. Acceptance also reveals a profound truth. The present moment is always survivable. Think carefully. Have you ever faced a moment you could not endure? You may have faced pain, difficulty, or sorrow, but you are still here. You survived every moment until now. Worry convinces you that you cannot survive the future, but the present is always survivable because it is always just this breath, just this step, just this moment. Acceptance anchors you in this truth. One of the greatest mistakes people make is confusing acceptance with passivity. They believe that if they accept life as it is, they will stop growing, stop striving, or stop improving their situation. But acceptance does not paralyze you. It empowers you. When you stop wasting energy denying reality, you free that energy to take wise, calm action. Instead of reacting out of fear, you respond with clarity. Instead of drowning in "why me?" you ask, "what now?" That shift from resistance to acceptance is the bridge from worry to peace. Letting go and acceptance are deeply connected. Letting go is the release of clinging to control. Acceptance is the embrace of reality as it stands. Together they form the path to true freedom. Without acceptance, worry lingers because you are always hoping reality will match your imagination. With acceptance, you live in harmony with life as it unfolds. And in that harmony, worry has no place to grow. Think of a tree in the middle of a storm. The wind blows fiercely, the rain pounds, and the tree bends with the force. If the tree resisted rigidly, refusing to move, it would snap. But because it bends, it survives. Acceptance is that bending. It does not mean weakness. It means flexibility, resilience, and wisdom. The storm may come, but it cannot break you because you are no longer resisting life. You are moving with it. Acceptance also transforms relationships. How much of your worry is about how others should behave? You may think, they should treat me differently. They should understand me better. They should act the way I expect. This attachment to how others should be creates endless worry and disappointment. Acceptance means seeing people as they are. You cannot control their choices, but you can choose your response. You can choose compassion instead of resentment, patience instead of frustration, understanding instead of judgment. When you accept others as they are, you stop living in the prison of constant worry about their actions. Finally, acceptance brings you into alignment with the deeper truth of impermanence. Everything changes. The present moment, no matter how difficult, will not last forever. By accepting it fully, you actually allow it to pass more quickly because you are no longer clinging or resisting. You are flowing with the river of life instead of fighting against it. The practice of acceptance does not happen overnight. It is a daily discipline. Each time you notice yourself worrying, pause and ask, what am I resisting right now? What part of reality am I refusing to accept? Then gently open your heart and remind yourself, this is how it is right now. It does not have to define my future, but it is here in this moment. I can accept it. I can face it. I can live through it. This simple practice begins to dissolve the roots of worry, one moment at a time. When you embrace the present moment as it is, you discover something extraordinary. Beneath the layers of resistance, beneath the stories of worry, there is a quiet peace that has always been there. It does not depend on things being perfect. It does not require certainty about tomorrow. It simply exists, waiting for you to notice it. Acceptance uncovers this peace, like clouds parting to reveal the sun. The sun was always shining. It was only hidden from view. And so the path becomes clear. Worry cannot survive where there is full acceptance. The mind may still whisper fears, but they no longer control you because you are rooted in reality, not imagination. You are present, not lost in the future. You are free, not enslaved by resistance. This is the freedom the Buddha pointed to, the freedom of being fully alive in this moment without the chains of worry pulling you away. 9. The path beyond worry is trusting the flow of life. If we look closely at the roots of worry, we find that it grows from one central fear, the fear of the unknown. The human mind craves certainty. It wants to know what tomorrow will bring. It wants to know that its efforts will succeed. It wants to know that its loved ones will remain safe, and it wants to know that nothing unexpected will disturb its comfort. Yet life does not give us certainty. It gives us change. It gives us seasons, cycles, beginnings and endings, growth and decay. Worry arises when the mind resists this natural uncertainty and demands control. But Buddhism teaches us a different path. Instead of fighting the flow of life, trust it. When you trust the flow, you no longer cling to knowing every answer. You no longer demand certainty from a world that is built on impermanence. You release the burden of control, and in doing so, you discover peace. Worry convinces us that by thinking enough, by rehearsing every possible outcome, by staying restless and on guard, we can somehow protect ourselves. But has worry ever truly protected you? Did all the hours you spent imagining disaster prevent disaster? Did they make you stronger, or did they only drain your energy before life even unfolded? In reality, worry is like carrying an umbrella every day, even when the sky is clear, simply because it might rain. The umbrella does not stop the rain, it only tires your arm and makes you live under a shadow, even when the sun is shining. Trusting the flow of life is learning to put down that umbrella when the sky is bright and to simply walk in the warmth of the present moment. To trust the flow does not mean you stop planning or preparing. It does not mean you live carelessly, ignoring responsibility. Instead, it means you do your part with sincerity, and then you release the rest. Imagine a farmer planting seeds. He tills the soil, waters the ground, and does everything within his power to care for the crop. But after that, he must trust the sun, the rain, and the earth. He cannot control the weather. If he spends every day worrying, what if it doesn't rain? What if a storm comes? What if the seeds don't grow? He will only exhaust himself without changing the outcome. Trust is understanding that you do what you can, and then you let the river of life carry the rest. The Buddha often used the metaphor of a river to describe life. A river flows constantly, never stopping, never holding on to any one moment. If you try to dam the river completely, you create pressure, resistance, and even destruction. But if you float with the river, if you learn to move with its currents, it carries you gently onward. Worry is like trying to stand still in the middle of that river, resisting its flow. You feel overwhelmed, unsteady, and afraid of being swept away. Trust, however, is learning to float. It is allowing the river to carry you, knowing that wherever it goes is part of the journey. One of the most profound truths of Buddhism is interdependence. Everything in life is connected. The rain depends on the clouds depend on the sun depends on the universe. Your life is not separate from this flow, it is part of it. Every experience, every encounter, every challenge is woven into a larger pattern that you cannot always see. Worry comes from trying to control this vast web with your limited perspective. Trust comes from recognizing that you are a part of this web and that life unfolds with a wisdom beyond what the mind can grasp. Think of moments in your life when things did not go according to your plan, yet they led you to unexpected blessings. Perhaps you lost an opportunity, only to find a better one later. Perhaps someone left your life, only to make space for someone else to enter. At the time, you may have worried, resisted, or felt despair, but looking back, you see how life had a larger plan for you. This is the essence of trusting the flow, believing that even when you cannot see the full picture, life is still guiding you toward growth. But how do you cultivate this trust in daily life? The first step is awareness. Notice when your mind begins to demand certainty. Notice when your thoughts say, "What if I fail? What if I am not enough? What if the future collapses?" Instead of being pulled into these thoughts, pause and remind yourself, "I cannot control the future. I can only live this moment." Then return to your breath, return to the present, and return to what is real. Trust grows when you practice this again and again. The second step is surrender. Surrender is not giving up. It is giving over. It is offering the future back to life instead of clutching it with fear. You can practice surrender in small ways. When plans change, instead of clinging to frustration, you say, "This is not what I expected, but I will flow with it." When you face uncertainty, you say, "I do not know how this will unfold, but I trust that I will meet it when it comes." This practice slowly loosens the grip of worry. because you are no longer demanding control over what cannot be controlled. The third step is gratitude. Gratitude shifts your attention from what might go wrong to what is already right. Each day, pause to notice the blessings around you. The breath that sustains you, the people who care for you, the opportunities you have. Gratitude reminds you that life has already given you much, and this builds trust in what it will continue to give. When you focus on abundance instead of scarcity, worry begins to fade. Trust also comes from observing nature. Look at the trees. They do not worry about whether the rain will come. Look at the birds. They do not worry about whether the sun will rise. They live in harmony with the rhythms of the world, trusting that each day will bring what it brings. Humans, with all our intelligence, often forget this wisdom. But by watching nature, we remember that trust is the most natural state of being. Worry is like being trapped in a cage of your own making. The bars of that cage are your fears about the future. Trust is the key that unlocks the door. When you trust life, you walk out of that cage and into the open sky. Yes, the sky may bring storms, but it also brings sunlight, freedom, and the vastness of possibility. You realize that freedom is worth more than the false safety of worry. Of course, trusting the flow of life does not erase all difficulties. Challenges will still come, losses will still occur, and pain will still visit your heart. But when you trust, you face these experiences differently. You no longer see them as punishments or disasters, you see them as part of the river's current. You may not understand their purpose in the moment, but you trust that they are part of the larger pattern of your journey. This trust gives you strength to endure without collapsing into endless worry. In the end, trusting the flow of life is an act of courage. It is choosing to believe that you can meet the unknown without fear. It is choosing to live fully in the present, instead of hiding in endless scenarios of what if. It is choosing to let go of control and discover the freedom of surrender. So ask yourself now, what would it feel like to truly trust life? What would it feel like to wake up each day without fear of the unknown? To walk with confidence even when the road ahead is unclear? To live in peace even when uncertainty surrounds you? This is not a dream. It is a reality available to you the moment you choose trust over worry. When you embrace trust, you will discover that life carries you gently even through storms. You will discover that the unknown is not your enemy, but your teacher. And most of all, you will discover that true freedom, the freedom beyond worry, is not found in controlling the flow of life, but in learning to float upon it with an open heart. 10. The end of worry comes when you discover the power of inner stillness. If there is one truth that can transform the way you experience life, it is this. Peace does not come from controlling the outer world, but from cultivating stillness within yourself. Worry is the opposite of stillness. It is restlessness, turbulence, and noise in the mind. When you are lost in worry, your thoughts race in 100 directions. You replay the past, you rehearse the future, and you create endless what-if scenarios that exhaust you. Yet beneath all this noise, there exists a deeper place within you that is always calm. Buddhism teaches us that this stillness is not something you need to create. It is something you uncover. It is already within you, hidden beneath the layers of restless thought. And when you touch this inner stillness, worry loses its grip, because worry cannot survive in silence. To understand this, imagine a pond on a windy day. The surface of the water is disturbed, rippling and restless. If you look at the surface, you see distortion and chaos. But if you dive beneath the surface, even just a few feet down, the water is calm and steady. The wind only disturbs the surface, not the depths. Your mind works the same way. Worry disturbs the surface, but beneath the surface there is always stillness. The practice of Buddhism is to dive inward, to go beneath the ripples of thought and find the deep calm that has always been there. Why is stillness so powerful against worry? Because worry feeds on movement. It survives only when the mind keeps running. It needs you to chase one thought after another, to jump from one fear to the next, to keep spinning the wheel of what if. But when you stop, when you become still, worry has nothing to cling to. It floats away like dust settling when the wind dies down. Stillness reveals that worry was never as solid as it seemed. It was only movement, only noise. Finding stillness begins with awareness of your breath, your body, and the present moment. But it goes deeper than techniques. It is a way of being. It is learning to live without being constantly pulled into the noise of the mind. You may sit in meditation, watching your thoughts rise and fall like waves. And in that watching, you realize something extraordinary. You are not the waves. You are the ocean beneath them. The thoughts come and go, but the stillness remains. When this realization becomes part of your daily life, worry loses its power. You stop identifying with the storm, and you start identifying with the calm beneath it. Think of how much of your life is spent in restless seeking. The mind says, "If only I fix this problem, I will finally be at peace. If only I achieve this goal, I will finally be calm. If only I control this situation, I will finally feel safe." But the peace you seek is not out there. It is here, within you, in the silence that has been waiting beneath the surface all along. The more you search for peace outside, the more you strengthen worry, because the outer world is always changing. True freedom comes when you realize that the world does not need to be perfect for you to be at peace. Your peace comes from stillness within. Worry often disguises itself as preparation. It tells you that by thinking endlessly, you are being responsible. But preparation and worry are not the same. Preparation is clear, calm action in the present. Worry is endless, fearful rehearsal of a future you cannot control. The difference lies in stillness. When you act from stillness, you see clearly what needs to be done right now, and you do it without fear. When you act from worry, you lose yourself in countless imaginary scenarios, none of which bring you peace. Stillness allows you to act with wisdom instead of panic. In Buddhism, meditation is the path to stillness. But meditation is not only about sitting with closed eyes. It is about learning to bring silence into every part of your life. When you walk with awareness, feeling each step. When you eat with attention, tasting each bite. When you listen fully, without planning your response. Each of these practices quiets the noise of the mind and brings you closer to the stillness beneath. The more you live this way, the less room worry has to grow. There is a story of a monk who sat by a river each morning. One day, a student asked him, "Master, why do you sit here so long, doing nothing?" The monk smiled and pointed to the water. When the river is turbulent, it cannot reflect the sky. But when it is still, it mirrors everything clearly. The student understood. When the mind is restless, filled with worry, it cannot see truth. But when it becomes still, it reflects reality as it is, without distortion. This is why stillness is so powerful. It reveals the truth hidden beneath the illusions of worry. You may wonder, how do I touch this stillness when my life feels so noisy? The answer is to start small. Set aside a few minutes each day to simply sit, breathe, and observe. Do not fight your thoughts, and do not chase them. Just watch. At first, the mind will resist. It will throw worries at you, trying to pull you back into its stories. But with patience, the thoughts begin to settle. Like muddy water left undisturbed, your mind slowly clears. In that clarity, you touch the stillness. The more often you practice, the easier it becomes to access this calm, even in the middle of life's chaos. Stillness also teaches you humility. It reminds you that you are not the master of the universe, and you do not need to be. Life is vast, mysterious, and beyond full control. Worry arises when you try to play the role of the universe, believing you must manage every outcome. But in stillness, you remember that you are part of something greater. You are a wave in the ocean of existence, carried by forces beyond your understanding. This humility is freeing because it allows you to surrender the impossible task of control. You realize you do not need to know everything, you do not need to manage everything, and you do not need to worry about everything. You only need to live this moment fully, with awareness and peace. Another gift of stillness is that it heals the body. Worry does not only disturb the mind, it also poisons the body. Chronic worry leads to tension, sleeplessness, fatigue, and even illness. But when you cultivate inner stillness, your body responds. Your breath deepens, your heartbeat slows, your muscles relax. Your body learns to live in harmony with your mind. Science today confirms what Buddhism has taught for centuries. Stillness heals. Perhaps the most beautiful truth about inner stillness is that it is always here, waiting. You do not have to create it. You do not have to earn it. You only have to uncover it, like clearing away the clouds to see the sun. The sun of stillness has never left you. It was only hidden by the storm of worry. The moment you return to it, you realize it was always within you. So how does this transform your relationship with worry? When worry arises, you no longer see it as a monster to fight or a master to obey. You see it as a ripple on the surface of your mind. You acknowledge it, you let it pass, and you return to the stillness beneath. With practice, you stop being carried away by every ripple, every fear, every what-if. You learn to rest in the calm depths of your being, where peace is unshakable. This does not mean life becomes free of challenges. The storms will still come, but you will no longer mistake the storm for the whole sky. You will know that beneath the storm there is always stillness. You will carry this awareness into every part of your life. In the face of uncertainty, you will breathe. In the face of fear, you will pause. In the face of chaos, you will return to the calm within. And from this calm, you will act with wisdom, clarity, and compassion. The end of worry is not the end of challenges. It is the discovery of a new way of living, a way rooted in stillness, acceptance, and trust. When you live this way, worry no longer enslaves you. You may still feel its presence at times, but it no longer rules you. You are free because you have touched the truth that lies beyond it, the stillness within, which no storm can disturb. So let this be your practice. Each day, take time to return to the silence within you. Let go of the noise of the mind, the endless what-ifs, the constant rehearsal of fears. Sink into the stillness, even for a few moments, and let it remind you of who you truly are. You are not the storm. You are not the worry. You are the calm beneath, the silence that holds everything. And when you live from this place, you will know the truth. Worry cannot survive inner stillness. 11. Worry ends when you learn to live without fear of tomorrow. Worry and fear are siblings. Worry is the mind rehearsing tomorrow's problems, and fear is the heart tightening in response to those thoughts. Together, they create a prison that keeps you from living fully in the present. The Buddha taught that fear arises from attachment to the future, our craving to know what will come, and our clinging to the illusion that life can be predicted and controlled. But the truth is, tomorrow does not exist yet. It is only a shadow cast by your imagination. The only reality is now. When you learn to live without fear of tomorrow, you break the chains of worry because you stop giving power to what is not yet real. Think for a moment about how much of your life is shaped by fear of what might happen. You hesitate to pursue your dreams because you fear failure. You hold back in relationships because you fear rejection. You stay awake at night fearing illness, loss, or change. Yet, how many of these fears actually came true? And when they did, were they as unbearable as you imagined? The mind magnifies tomorrow's shadows until they look like monsters. But when you step into the moment itself, you discover you can endure far more than you feared. Fear of tomorrow is always greater than tomorrow itself. The path beyond worry, then, is not found in predicting or controlling tomorrow. It is found in transforming your relationship with it. Buddhism teaches that fear of the future comes from illusion, and freedom comes from wisdom. To live without fear of tomorrow, you must see three truths clearly: the truth of impermanence, the truth of non-attachment, and the truth of presence. The first truth is impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, not joy, not pain, not fear, not even life itself. When you realize that everything changes, you stop fearing tomorrow as something fixed and immovable. Tomorrow will not be a single solid block of destiny. It will be fluid, shifting, and alive. You may meet challenges, but they too will pass. You may encounter loss, but healing will follow. You may experience pain, but joy will return. Impermanence is not your enemy. It is your liberation, because it ensures that nothing you fear can imprison you forever. The second truth is non-attachment. Worry thrives on clinging. You fear tomorrow because you are attached to outcomes. I must succeed. I must not fail. This person must stay with me. My life must unfold this way. When the mind clings to these expectations, the future becomes frightening because it is full of possibilities where you might lose what you cling to. But when you loosen your grip, the fear loosens too. You realize that you can be at peace even if tomorrow does not go as planned. You realize your happiness is not tied to outcomes beyond your control, but to the freedom within you. Non-attachment is not about indifference. It is about being free enough to love, to work, to live fully without being enslaved by fear of loss. The third truth is presence. Fear only exists in the future. If you look closely at your life right now, in this exact moment, are you in danger? Are you being destroyed by the fears you imagine? Most often the answer is no. In this moment you are breathing. In this moment you are alive. In this moment you have the strength to face what is here. Presence dissolves fear because it anchors you in reality. The mind may create stories about tomorrow, but the present moment always reveals a simpler truth. You are safe here and now. When you bring these three truths together, impermanence, non-attachment, and presence, you begin to live without fear of tomorrow. You may still make plans, you may still dream, you may still work toward your goals, but you do so without clinging, without fear, and without letting the shadows of the future dominate your peace today. There is a powerful Buddhist practice that can help you dissolve fear of tomorrow. It is called contemplation of death. At first, this may sound frightening, but in truth, it is liberating. By reflecting on the reality that life is fragile and tomorrow is not guaranteed, you stop wasting your energy worrying about what has not happened yet. You begin to cherish each day, each moment, each breath. Fear of tomorrow shrinks because you realize that tomorrow was never promised to begin with. Instead of fearing the future, you begin to treasure the present. This does not make you careless, it makes you alive. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones labeled "What if?" Every morning you put it on your back. What if I lose my job? What if I get sick? What if people leave me? What if I fail? The weight grows heavier each day, but notice that most of those stones never even fall on your path. You carried them for nothing. Living without fear of tomorrow is like putting down that backpack. You walk lighter, freer, able to move with joy instead of dread. Another way to release fear of tomorrow is to practice trust, not blind trust, but deep trust in the flow of life. You may not know what tomorrow holds, but you can trust that you will meet it with the strength you already carry. Think of your past. How many times did you fear you would not survive a challenge, yet you did? How many times did life surprise you with blessings where you expected disaster? This history is proof. You can trust yourself, and you can trust life. Fear of tomorrow weakens when you remember how many tomorrows you have already faced and overcome. Living without fear of tomorrow also allows you to love more deeply. Fear often keeps you guarded, afraid to give your heart fully in case you lose. But when you stop fearing the future, you stop holding back. You love generously. You live courageously. You give freely. Worry tells you to save your love for a safe future. Presence tells you to pour your love into today. And when you live this way, fear of tomorrow loses its power because you are already living fully now. One of the greatest illusions of worry is that it protects you. You believe that by fearing tomorrow, you are preparing for it. But worry does not prepare you. It paralyzes you. Stillness, presence, and trust prepare you far better than fear ever could. When you are calm and mindful, you see solutions more clearly. When you are rooted in the present, you act wisely instead of reacting blindly. When you are free from fear, you walk into tomorrow with courage instead of trembling. The Buddha said, "The trouble is, you think you have time." Worry is the clearest proof of this truth. You live so much in fear of what might come that you forget to live now. But the now is all you truly have. Tomorrow will come or it will not, but either way, it is not yours yet. The present moment is your only true possession. When you honor it, when you embrace it fully, you step out of worry's shadow and into the light of freedom. So ask yourself, what would it feel like to live without fear of tomorrow? What would it feel like to wake up each day without carrying the heavy stones of what if? What would it feel like to love, to work, to walk, and to breathe without the constant shadow of worry about the future? This is not a dream. It is possible. It begins the moment you choose trust over fear, presence over worry, and stillness over noise. The end of worry does not come from controlling tomorrow. It comes from realizing tomorrow does not exist yet. It comes from loosening your grip on what you cannot hold, and from standing firmly in the truth of now. When you live without fear of tomorrow, you are finally free. Not because life is predictable, but because you no longer need it to be. 12. Worry fades. When you realize the present moment is already complete. One of the most overlooked truths of human life is that we are always chasing what is next. The mind convinces us that happiness is around the corner, that peace will come tomorrow, that contentment lies in the next achievement, the next possession, or the next solution. And so we rush endlessly forward, rarely stopping to notice what is here. Worry is born from this constant chase. It tells us that until we secure the future, until we control every possibility, we cannot rest. But Buddhism teaches a profound secret. The present moment is already complete. You are not missing anything essential right now. You are already whole, already alive, already breathing. When you realize this truth, worry begins to dissolve, because you stop searching for peace in a tomorrow that does not exist. To understand this more clearly, consider a person standing on the edge of a beautiful garden. The flowers are blooming, the air is filled with fragrance, and the sunlight filters through the leaves in golden streams. Yet instead of entering the garden, the person stands at the gate, staring anxiously down the road, worrying about whether another garden might appear in the distance, whether the weather tomorrow will be good, whether the flowers in the next place might be brighter. They miss the garden that is right in front of them. This is how most of us live. The present moment is full of beauty and peace, but our minds are locked on what is missing, what might happen later, or what went wrong before. Worry is the result of this blindness. The Buddha reminded his followers to return again and again to the present, because it is the only reality. The past has already slipped beyond your reach. The future has not yet arrived. The only place you can ever live, act, or find peace is now. Yet how much of your life has been wasted in regrets about yesterday or fears about tomorrow? When you bring your attention back to the present, you discover something extraordinary. Nothing is missing. In this moment, your heart is beating, your lungs are breathing, and life is happening. Even if challenges exist, they exist only as one small part of the vast reality of now. Worry convinces you that the present is not enough. It says, "You will only be safe if this changes. You will only be happy if that happens. You will only be at peace if tomorrow turns out right." But when you pause and truly look at this moment, you often realize that you already have what you need. You have breath. You have awareness. You have the strength to face what is here. The present moment may not be perfect, but it is complete, because it contains everything necessary for you to live right now. Let us look at an example. Imagine you are sitting at home late at night, worrying about a bill that must be paid next week. Your mind begins to spin. What if I cannot pay it? What if everything falls apart? What if I fail? The worry grows larger and larger until you feel trapped in fear. But pause and notice. Right now, in this moment, are you safe? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food to eat? Do you have breath in your lungs? Most often the answer is yes. The problem may still exist, but it exists in the future, not in the present. By returning to the present, you discover that right now you are okay. And that realization allows you to act from peace instead of panic. This is not denial. It is clarity. You are not pretending that the future does not matter. You are refusing to let it dominate the only moment you can truly live. By grounding yourself in the completeness of now, you stop feeding worry with constant fear. Instead, you conserve your energy to take wise action when the time comes. Buddhism often speaks of suchness, the idea that life in each moment simply is what it is. This flower is blooming, this bird is singing, this breath is rising and falling. Worry pulls you out of suchness, insisting that what is should be something else. Acceptance pulls you back, reminding you that what is here is enough. When you rest in suchness, you no longer measure your peace against an imagined tomorrow. You find peace in the reality that exists right now. One of the greatest sources of worry is comparison. You look at your life and think, it should look different. I should have more. I should be further ahead. This constant measuring creates anxiety, because no matter what you achieve, the mind tells you it is not enough. But when you realize that the present moment is already complete, comparison fades. You no longer need to prove your worth against others, because you see that wholeness is already within you. The flower does not worry about being less bright than the sun, nor does the river worry about being smaller than the ocean. Each is complete in itself. And so are you. Meditation is a practice that helps reveal this completeness. When you sit in silence, focusing on the breath, the mind will resist. It will tell you that you should be doing something else, fixing something, planning something. But as you return again and again to the breath, you begin to taste the fullness of now. You notice sensations in the body, sounds in the environment, and thoughts rising and falling. You realize that nothing more is needed in this moment. You are here. You are alive. And that is enough. Worry loses its grip when you stop demanding that life give you something more than what is already here. Imagine sitting on a beach, watching the waves roll in and out. You could sit there worrying about the next wave, asking, will it be too big? Will it be too small? Will it come on time? Or you could simply sit and watch, appreciating each wave as it arrives, knowing that the ocean does not owe you perfection. Life is like the ocean. Its waves of experience rise and fall, sometimes calm, sometimes stormy. Worry comes from demanding that the waves be different. Peace comes from accepting them as they are, and realizing that even as they rise and fall, the ocean remains whole. When you practice living in the completeness of now, even difficult moments become lighter. You may face pain, but you stop adding the extra layer of worry about how long it will last or how bad it might become. You simply experience the pain as it is, without multiplying it with fear. You may face uncertainty, but instead of drowning in what if, you stay grounded in what is. This shift is subtle but powerful. It turns life from a battle with the future into an embrace of the present. Another way to see the completeness of now is through gratitude. Worry focuses on absence, what is missing, what is lacking, what might go wrong. Gratitude focuses on presence, what is already here, what is working, what is beautiful in this moment. When you practice gratitude, you realize that life is never empty. Even in hardship, there are blessings. A kind word, a moment of breath, a ray of sunlight. Gratitude opens your eyes to the fullness of now, and in that fullness, worry has no space to grow. There is a story of a monk who was asked how he could remain so peaceful in the face of uncertainty. He smiled and said, "When I eat, I eat. When I walk, I walk. When I sit, I sit." That is all the questioner did not understand. "But everyone eats, walks, and sits," he replied. The monk answered, "Yes, but not everyone is present while doing so. Most are already worrying about what comes next." The monk's peace came from his ability to live fully in the present, not pulled into the endless chase of tomorrow. This is the essence of realizing completeness. You do not need to escape this moment, because this moment is enough. So how can you practice this in your daily life? Begin by noticing when worry arises. Instead of following it into the future, pause and look around. Ask yourself, what is happening right now? Am I safe in this moment? Do I have what I need to breathe, to live, to exist? The answer is almost always yes. Then let that truth sink in. This moment is whole. This moment is complete. You do not need to carry the burden of tomorrow on your back. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, you begin to live with the awareness that every moment is complete in itself. You stop postponing peace until tomorrow. You stop chaining happiness to future outcomes. You begin to live fully, deeply, and freely in the only place life ever happens, here and now. When you realize that the present moment is already complete, you no longer live as a prisoner of worry. You step into freedom. You understand that nothing is missing, because you are already whole. You see that peace is not waiting for you in the future. It is waiting for you in this breath, in this step, in this heartbeat. And when you live from this truth, worry fades like a shadow in the light of awareness. 13. The end of worry comes when you understand the nature of the mind. One of the most important truths taught in Buddhism is that the mind is both the source of suffering and the key to liberation. Worry, fear, anxiety, doubt, all of these arise not from the world itself, but from the way the mind interprets the world. Two people may face the same situation, yet one is consumed with worry while the other remains calm. Why? Because the difference lies not in the situation, but in the mind. To end worry, then, you must understand the mind, how it works, how it creates illusions, and how awareness can free you from its traps. The Buddha compared the mind to a monkey, constantly jumping from branch to branch, restless and unsettled. This restless activity is the soil in which worry grows. When the mind is never still, it seizes on every possibility of danger, every fragment of uncertainty, and magnifies it into fear. A small problem becomes a catastrophe. A passing thought becomes a story of disaster. The monkey mind thrives on movement, and worry is its favorite playground. But the Buddha also taught that through mindfulness, meditation, and wisdom, the monkey can be tamed. The mind can become steady, clear, and free from the endless chatter that gives birth to worry. Let us examine how worry is created in the mind. A thought arises. What if I lose my job? At first, this thought is neutral, just a flicker in the stream of consciousness. But the mind grabs it, repeats it, adds details. If I lose my job, I won't pay the bills. If I can't pay the bills, I'll lose my home. If I lose my home, everyone will see me as a failure. If that happens, I'll be miserable forever. What began as a single thought snowballs into a nightmare of endless suffering. The body reacts as if the nightmare is real. Stress hormones flood the system, the heart races, sleep disappears, and worry takes full control. Yet notice the truth. Nothing has actually happened. It is all an illusion created by the mind. This process reveals the first key to ending worry. Thoughts are not facts. A thought is only a mental event, like a cloud passing through the sky. But when you forget this truth, you believe every thought as if it were reality. The mind says, disaster is coming, and you feel as if disaster has already arrived. The practice of mindfulness helps you remember, this is just a thought, not reality. When you see thoughts as thoughts, you stop treating them as commands. Worry loses its grip because you no longer mistake imagination for truth. Another way the mind fuels worry is through habit. The brain learns patterns, and if you worry often, it becomes easier for the mind to slip into worry again. Worry becomes the default response, like a path in the forest that has been walked so many times it becomes smooth and easy to follow. The mind takes that path automatically, even when it is not useful. This is why worry feels so hard to escape. It has become a mental habit. But habits can be changed. Each time you notice worry and choose awareness instead, you are carving a new path. At first, it feels difficult, but with practice, the new path becomes easier and the old path grows over. Slowly, the mind learns a new way of being, calm, clear, and present. The Buddha also taught that craving and aversion, the constant push and pull of the mind, create suffering. Worry arises from this same movement. You crave certainty, so you worry about securing the future. You fear discomfort, so you worry about avoiding it. The mind is never satisfied, always reaching, always resisting. But when you see this pattern clearly, you can begin to step out of it. You realize that you do not need to satisfy every craving or eliminate every discomfort to be at peace. Peace is found not in controlling the world, but in calming the mind's endless push and pull. To deepen your understanding, imagine sitting by a river. Thoughts flow past like water. Some are calm, some are turbulent, some are dark, some are light. Worry is like trying to stop the river, grabbing at every current, clinging to every wave. You exhaust yourself fighting what cannot be controlled, but if you simply sit and watch, you see that the river flows on its own. Thoughts come and go. None of them define you, none of them last forever. The mind is not your enemy, it is simply a river. Worry ends when you stop fighting the river and instead watch it flow with awareness. Still, the mind is tricky. It convinces you that worry is useful, that by imagining problems you are preparing for them. But notice how often this is false. Worry rarely gives you solutions, it only repeats problems. True preparation is calm, practical, and present-focused. Worry is repetitive, fearful, and future-focused. The difference is awareness. When you act from awareness, you see clearly what can be done now. When you act from worry, you are trapped in endless what-ifs. Understanding this difference allows you to shift your energy from fearful repetition to mindful action. Meditation is the greatest tool for understanding the mind. When you sit quietly and watch your breath, you begin to notice the constant stream of thoughts. At first, you may feel frustrated because the mind will not stop moving. But slowly, you realize that the goal is not to stop thoughts, it is to see them clearly. You notice how they rise and fall on their own. You notice how one thought leads to another, creating stories. You notice how quickly the mind jumps from past to future, and with this awareness, you begin to loosen your grip. You no longer chase every thought. You no longer believe every story. You rest in the awareness that watches it all. This awareness is your true self, and in it, worry has no power. Understanding the mind also reveals a deeper truth. You are not your thoughts. The mind produces thoughts just as the body produces breath or the heart produces beats. They come and go without your control. Yet we often identify with them completely, saying, "I am worried, I am afraid, I am anxious." But are you the thought itself, or are you the one who notices it? When you see that you are the observer, not the thought, you create distance. Worry may still arise, but you no longer drown in it. You watch it come, you watch it go, and you remain free. The Buddha compared the mind to a mirror. When the mirror is covered in dust, it cannot reflect clearly. Worry is that dust. It clouds your vision, distorting reality. But when you practice mindfulness, meditation, and awareness, you wipe the dust away. The mirror reflects the world as it is, without distortion. You see reality clearly, without the fog of fear, and in that clarity, worry disappears, because it has no ground to stand on. Understanding the mind also means understanding compassion. Many of your worries come from harshness toward yourself. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if others see my weakness? These fears are magnified by self-criticism. But when you bring compassion to the mind, worry softens. You say, "It is okay to be uncertain. It is okay to not know. It is okay to be human." The mind calms when it is met with kindness. Worry thrives on fear, but it cannot survive compassion. Finally, to understand the mind is to understand emptiness. The Buddha taught that all phenomena, including thoughts, are empty of fixed essence. Worry feels solid when you believe it, but when you examine it closely, it dissolves. Where is the worry? Is it in the thought? The thought passes. Is it in the feeling? The feeling changes. Is it in the future you imagine? The future does not exist yet. Worry has no solid foundation. It is only a construction of the mind. When you see its emptiness, you stop being controlled by it. So the path is clear. If you want to end worry, study the mind. Watch how it creates stories. Notice how it clings and resists. See how it repeats old habits. And then, with awareness, step back. You are not the stories. You are not the habits. You are not the illusions. You are the awareness that notices them all. When you rest in that awareness, worry loses its power because the nature of the mind has been revealed. When you truly understand the mind, you no longer fear its movements. Thoughts may arise, but you see them as clouds. Emotions may surge, but you see them as waves. Worry may whisper, but you hear it as an echo. You remain steady because you know the truth. The mind is not your master. It is a tool, and awareness is the one who holds it. This realization is the ultimate freedom from worry. 14. Worry disappears. When you see life as a teacher, not a threat. At the heart of worry lies a mistaken view of life. Most people see life as something that must be controlled, conquered, or defended against. They see each challenge as an enemy, each change as a danger, and each unknown as a threat. This perspective naturally breeds worry, because if life is full of threats, then the mind must stay on guard at all times. Yet Buddhism offers a radical shift in perception. Life is not your enemy. Life is your teacher. Every experience, whether pleasant or painful, is an opportunity for awakening. When you begin to see life in this way, worry starts to fade. Because instead of asking, "How can I avoid this?" you begin to ask, "What can I learn from this?" And that single shift transforms fear into curiosity, anxiety into openness, and worry into wisdom. The mind that worries believes it must protect you from pain. It whispers, "If I can imagine every bad outcome, if I can prepare for every danger, then you will be safe." But the truth is, no amount of worry can protect you from the natural flow of life. Pain will still come, loss will still happen, and uncertainty will always exist. Worry cannot stop these things. It only makes you suffer twice, once in imagination and again in reality. But when you see life as a teacher, you stop fearing these moments as enemies. Instead, you accept them as lessons that help you grow. You realize that pain is not punishment, loss is not failure, and uncertainty is not chaos. They are all part of the curriculum of life. Think of the challenges you have faced in your past. How many of them felt unbearable in the moment? How many of them filled your heart with worry and fear? Yet now, when you look back, you can often see how those very challenges shaped you, taught you, and even strengthened you. The disappointment that once broke your heart taught you resilience. The failure that once embarrassed you taught you humility. The loss that once left you empty taught you compassion. Life has always been teaching you, even in its hardest moments. Worry blinds you to this truth because it makes you see challenges only as dangers. But when you change your perspective, you realize that every experience is a doorway to wisdom. The Buddha himself experienced countless difficulties on his path to enlightenment. He faced hunger, ridicule, doubt, and temptation. Yet he did not see these as enemies. He saw them as necessary teachers that revealed the truth of suffering and the path to liberation. In the same way, when you embrace life as a teacher, you begin to see that worry is unnecessary. You no longer need to fear every change or resist every challenge, because you understand that they carry hidden gifts of growth. Let us use an analogy. Imagine a student sitting in class. The teacher asks a difficult question. The student feels nervous, worried that they may not know the answer. If the student sees the teacher as an enemy, they will shrink back, hide, and suffer in silence. But if they see the teacher as a guide, they approach the question with curiosity. They may stumble, they may be corrected, but they will learn. Life is that teacher. Worry makes you treat every question as a threat. Wisdom helps you see each one as an opportunity to grow. One of the reasons worry is so exhausting is that it resists reality. It says, "This should not be happening." But when you see life as a teacher, you replace resistance with acceptance. Instead of saying, "Why me?" you begin to say, "What is this moment teaching me?" This small change in attitude creates a massive change in experience. Suddenly, instead of being crushed by challenges, you are empowered by them. Instead of drowning in fear, you rise with courage. This perspective also changes the way you deal with uncertainty. Normally, uncertainty fuels worry because the mind sees it as dangerous. Not knowing feels threatening, so the mind creates endless what-ifs to try to cover every possibility. But if you see life as a teacher, uncertainty becomes exciting. It is an open space where new lessons can arise. It is a chance for growth, discovery, and transformation. You no longer need to fill every unknown with fear. You can leave space for wonder. Consider how a child approaches the world. They do not see every new experience as a threat. They see it as a chance to learn. They touch, taste, explore, and ask questions. They do not yet carry the heavy burden of worry, because they see life through the eyes of curiosity. Buddhism invites you to return to this childlike openness, not naive but free, not careless but trusting. When you meet life with curiosity instead of fear, worry has no soil in which to grow. Worry also collapses when you see mistakes as lessons rather than failures. Much of our worry comes from fear of making mistakes. Fear of saying the wrong thing, choosing the wrong path, or failing in front of others. But what if mistakes are simply part of learning? Imagine learning to walk as a child. Every fall was not failure, it was practice. Every stumble was not disaster, it was progress. The same is true for every stage of life. You will stumble, you will fall, but each step teaches you something. Worry tells you that mistakes are to be feared. Wisdom tells you that mistakes are simply lessons in disguise. Another way to see life as a teacher is to observe how suffering deepens compassion. When you suffer, you begin to understand the suffering of others. When you worry, you can use that worry as a reminder of how many people live with the same fears. Instead of letting it consume you, you can transform it into empathy. This shift not only eases your own burden, but allows you to connect more deeply with others. You realize that you are not alone in your struggles. Life is teaching all of us together. Practical ways to cultivate this mindset include daily reflection. At the end of each day, instead of reviewing your worries, review your lessons. Ask yourself, what did life teach me today? What strength did I discover? What truth did I uncover? By making this a habit, you train your mind to look for wisdom instead of threats. Over time, worry weakens because your default perspective is no longer fear, but curiosity and learning. Meditation also helps you see life as a teacher. When you sit in silence and observe your mind, you begin to notice how thoughts arise and pass, how emotions swell and fade, how the body changes moment to moment. Each observation is a lesson. You learn patience by watching restlessness. You learn compassion by noticing self-criticism. You learn impermanence by observing the breath. The cushion becomes your classroom and life becomes your teacher. Ultimately, seeing life as a teacher transforms your entire existence. Worry fades because nothing feels wasted. Every challenge, every uncertainty, every change becomes meaningful. Instead of fearing the future, you look forward to its lessons. Instead of clinging to the past, you thank it for its teachings. Instead of resisting the present, you embrace it as your classroom. This way of living frees you from fear because nothing is ever truly against you. Everything is guiding you toward awakening. So ask yourself, how would your life change if you stopped seeing challenges as threats and started seeing them as teachers? How would your heart feel if, instead of drowning in worry, you met each moment with openness and curiosity? How much lighter would your steps become if you trusted that every experience carries wisdom, even if it arrives wrapped in difficulty? The truth is, life has always been teaching you. Every joy, every sorrow, every success, every failure, they have all shaped you, guided you, and awakened you. Worry was never necessary because the lessons come whether you resist them or not. The choice is yours. Will you suffer through them as threats, or will you grow through them as teachings? When you choose the latter, you step into freedom. And so the teaching becomes clear. Worry disappears when you see life not as a battlefield, but as a classroom, not as a punishment, but as a lesson, not as a threat, but as a teacher. When you live this way, you no longer carry the heavy burden of constant fear. You walk with lightness, with openness, and with trust. Because you know that whatever comes, joy or sorrow, gain or loss, it is not here to destroy you. It is here to awaken you. 15. Worry dissolves. When you discover the strength of surrender. If we look deeply into the nature of worry, we see that it is born from resistance. Worry is the mind's way of saying, I refuse to accept uncertainty. I refuse to accept loss. I refuse to accept anything outside my control. The restless thoughts circle again and again, fueled by the desperate attempt to bend life to our will. But Buddhism teaches us that the path to peace lies not in resistance, but in surrender. Surrender does not mean giving up, nor does it mean becoming passive or careless. True surrender is the courage to release control where control is impossible and to live in harmony with the flow of life instead of fighting against it. When you discover the strength of surrender, worry begins to dissolve because you no longer demand that life obey your fears. The mind that worries believes it must manage every detail of existence. It says, I must make sure my loved ones never leave me. I must make sure I never fail. I must make sure the future unfolds exactly as I want. But notice, are these demands realistic? Can anyone truly guarantee that nothing will ever change? Can anyone hold back loss or stop the river of time from flowing? Of course not. Yet the mind continues to resist reality, and that resistance becomes suffering. Surrender is the recognition that life is too vast, too mysterious, and too interconnected to ever be controlled by a single person. When you surrender, you stop fighting the river. You learn to float, and in floating, you find peace. Surrender is often misunderstood as weakness. Many people fear that if they surrender, they will lose their power, their purpose, or their dignity. But in truth, surrender is one of the deepest forms of strength. It takes great courage to release the illusion of control. It takes wisdom to admit that you cannot manage the entire universe. It takes trust to let life unfold as it will. Weakness is clinging to illusions. Strength is letting them go. Worry clings. Surrender releases. And in releasing, you become free. Think of the way a tree stands in a storm. If it is too rigid, it will snap under the pressure of the wind. But if it bends, it survives. Surrender is that bending. It does not mean you fall, nor does it mean you give up. It means you are flexible enough to survive whatever comes. Worry stiffens you, filling you with fear of breaking. Surrender softens you, allowing you to move gracefully with the storms of life. Which tree survives? The one that surrenders. One of the most painful truths for the worrying mind to accept is that the future cannot be predicted. No matter how much you think, analyze, or prepare, tomorrow will always remain uncertain. Worry tries to defeat this uncertainty by rehearsing every possible disaster. But no amount of rehearsal can stop life from surprising you. Surrender means releasing the need to know. It means accepting that the unknown is not your enemy. It is simply life, unshaped and unfolding. When you surrender to the unknown, you no longer waste your energy in endless what-ifs. Instead, you conserve your strength for meeting life as it comes. Consider the ocean. The waves rise and fall, the tides shift, storms appear and disappear. If you dive into the ocean with the belief that you must control the waves, you will exhaust yourself, and worry will consume you. But if you surrender to the rhythm of the sea, floating with its movements, you find peace even in the midst of change. Life is the ocean. You cannot stop the waves, but you can learn to float. Worry says, fight the waves. Surrender says, flow with them, and only one of these paths leads to freedom. There is a story in Zen Buddhism about a man who fell into a river and was swept toward a waterfall. People on the shore cried out in fear, certain that he would die. But moments later, he appeared downstream, unharmed. When they asked how he survived, he said, "I did not fight the water. I let myself sink into its flow, and it carried me safely." This story illustrates the essence of surrender. Resistance would have drowned him, worry would have paralyzed him, but surrender allowed him to survive. The practice of surrender begins with awareness. The next time worry arises, pause and ask yourself, am I trying to control something that is beyond my reach? Often the answer will be yes. You may be worrying about the choices of others, about the passage of time, about the unfolding of events far outside your influence. When you recognize this, you can practice releasing it. You can remind yourself, this is not mine to control. I surrender it to life. With this, the burden lightens. You free yourself from carrying the weight of the entire universe on your shoulders. But surrender does not mean passivity. It does not mean you do nothing in the face of challenges. It means you act wisely on what is within your control and release what is not. The farmer surrenders to the weather, but still plants his seeds. The sailor surrenders to the wind, but still steers his ship. The monk surrenders to impermanence, but still lives each day with mindfulness and care. Surrender is not the absence of action. It is the presence of peace within action. It is the balance between effort and acceptance. To cultivate surrender, it helps to practice letting go in small ways. Notice how tightly you hold on to little things, a schedule that changes, a plan that falls through, a small mistake that lingers in your mind. Each of these is a chance to practice release. Instead of clinging, breathe and let it be. Over time, these small acts of surrender prepare you for the larger challenges of life. You learn that you do not need to control everything to live peacefully. Gratitude also deepens surrender. When you focus on what is present instead of what might go wrong, you naturally soften your grip on the future. You realize that life has already given you much, and that worrying about tomorrow only blinds you to today's gifts. Gratitude shifts your energy from fear to trust, and trust is the foundation of surrender. Worry thrives on the illusion that you must hold on, but surrender reveals that letting go is safer than clinging. Imagine hanging from a rope tied to a burning branch. Your fear tells you to hold tighter, even as the flames draw closer. But true safety lies in letting go and falling into the river below. Worry keeps you clinging to the burning branch. Surrender drops you into the freedom of the river. In Buddhism, surrender is closely tied to the understanding of impermanence. Everything you fear losing will one day be gone. Your possessions, your relationships, even your body. This truth may sound heavy, but it is actually liberating. When you surrender to impermanence, you stop trying to cling to what cannot be kept. You stop worrying about preventing loss, because you accept that change is the nature of existence. Instead of fearing it, you flow with it. Surrender also reveals the interconnectedness of life. When you release the illusion of control, you begin to see how many forces support you. The sun rises each day without your effort. The earth turns without your command. Your heart beats, your lungs breathe, your body heals, all without your control. Life is carrying you in ways you cannot see. Worry makes you feel isolated, as if everything depends on you alone. Surrender shows you that you are supported by the entire universe. You are not separate from the flow, you are part of it. In the deepest sense, surrender is love. It is saying yes to life, even when it does not match your expectations. It is trusting that every experience, even the painful ones, is part of your awakening. It is releasing fear and embracing faith, not blind faith, but faith born from wisdom, from seeing that worry has never protected you, but surrender has always freed you. So ask yourself, what would your life feel like if you surrendered more often? If, instead of fighting every change, you flowed with it? If, instead of clinging to certainty, you embraced uncertainty with trust? How much lighter would your heart feel if you stopped carrying the illusion of control? How much peace would enter your life if you let go, not in despair, but in strength? The answer is clear. Worry dissolves in surrender. The storms of life may still come, but you will no longer fight them in fear. You will bend like the tree, float like the man in the river, and flow like the ocean itself. You will act where you can, release where you cannot, and live each moment with grace. This is the strength of surrender. This is the path beyond worry. 16. Worry vanishes. When you realize that nothing in life truly belongs to you, at the root of worry lies attachment. We cling to people, possessions, identities, plans, and dreams, and then we spend our days and nights worrying about losing them. We say, "This is mine. This must stay with me. If it goes, I will not survive." And so, the mind creates endless stories. What if I lose my job? What if my loved ones leave me? What if my body fails me? What if I am forgotten? But Buddhism reveals a liberating truth. Nothing in life truly belongs to you. Everything is borrowed. Everything is passing through. And when you begin to live with this understanding, worry loses its chains because you no longer cling to what was never truly yours to begin with. This truth is not meant to make you cold or detached. It is not meant to strip life of meaning. In fact, it does the opposite. When you accept that nothing belongs to you permanently, you learn to love more deeply, to cherish more fully, and to live more freely. You stop clinging in fear and start embracing in gratitude. You see each person, each moment, each breath as a gift, not a possession. And in that shift, worry fades because you no longer live in constant fear of losing what you thought was yours. Think of the way you hold sand in your hand. If you grip it tightly, trying to keep every grain, it slips out between your fingers. The tighter you hold, the more you lose. But if you hold it gently, the sand rests in your palm for as long as it is meant to. Life works in the same way. Worry makes you grip too tightly, desperate to hold what cannot be held. Wisdom teaches you to hold gently, with love but without clinging. And in this gentleness, you discover freedom. The Buddha taught that clinging is the root of suffering. Worry is one of the clearest expressions of clinging. You cling to health, so you worry about sickness. You cling to wealth, so you worry about loss. You cling to relationships, so you worry about separation. You cling to identity, so you worry about failure or rejection. Each attachment becomes a chain around your mind, binding you to fear. But when you loosen these chains, you discover a lightness you never knew was possible. Consider your body. From childhood to adulthood to old age, your body has changed countless times. Cells die and are replaced. Your face, your hands, your very form has transformed. Can you say this body is truly yours when it changes without your command? It is a gift of nature, borrowed for a time, and one day it will return to the earth. Worrying about controlling it forever is like worrying about holding back the tide. Freedom comes when you care for your body with love, but accept its impermanence with peace. Consider your relationships. The people you love are not your possessions. They are souls on their own journeys, passing through your life for a season, an hour, or a lifetime. Worry arises when you try to bind them to you, demanding that they never leave, never change, never disappoint. But love is not ownership. Love is presence, kindness, and respect for the freedom of another. When you accept that even your closest bonds are impermanent, you stop worrying about losing them. Instead, you treasure each moment you share, knowing it is precious precisely because it cannot last forever. Consider your identity. You may cling to being successful, respected, or admired. And so you worry, what if I fail? What if I am criticized? What if people think less of me? But identity is also impermanent. The roles you play, student, worker, parent, friend, change with time. The labels people place on you rise and fall like waves. Who you are is not these labels. Who you are is the awareness behind them. When you stop clinging to identity, you stop worrying about protecting an image. You live authentically, with nothing to prove. Nothing belongs to you permanently, not possessions, not people, not identity, not even the breath in your lungs. Every breath is borrowed. Each inhale enters as a gift. Each exhale leaves without your command. One day, there will be a final exhale, and this too will return to silence. To live in constant worry about this reality is to miss the beauty of the gift. To live in acceptance of it is to be free. This truth of non-ownership is not meant to strip joy, but to deepen it. Imagine drinking a cup of tea. If you believe you can keep the taste forever, you will be disappointed the moment it fades. But if you accept that the taste is temporary, you savor it more fully. Life is the same. Everything is a passing flavor, and when you stop worrying about holding it, you begin to truly taste it. Meditation reveals this truth directly. When you sit quietly and observe your thoughts, you see that even they do not belong to you. They arise on their own and pass on their own. You cannot predict them, you cannot command them, and you cannot hold them. They are visitors, not possessions. The same is true of feelings, sensations, and experiences. They come, they stay for a while, and they leave. Nothing stays, nothing belongs, yet awareness remains. You are not the possessions. You are the space in which they come and go. When you live with this awareness, worry fades because you stop confusing yourself with what you cannot keep. You no longer say, "This is mine, it must stay," but instead say, "This is here, I will cherish it." You no longer live in fear of losing because you understand that nothing is ever lost. Everything simply changes form. There is a story of a monk who carried a clay cup. He loved the cup for its simplicity and beauty, but each day he reminded himself, "This cup is already broken." By remembering its impermanence, he freed himself from worry. When the day finally came that the cup cracked and shattered, he did not suffer, because he had already accepted it. He had loved it fully while it lasted, without clinging to it as his forever. This is the heart of non-ownership, to love deeply, but without fear. So how can you practice this in daily life? Begin with small things. When you drink water, remind yourself, "This water is borrowed from the earth. It does not belong to me." When you enjoy the company of a loved one, remind yourself, "This moment is a gift. It is not mine to keep." When you breathe, remind yourself, "This breath is given. It may be my last, and that is okay." These reflections soften your grip and open your heart. Over time, you begin to see that worry is unnecessary. Why worry about losing what was never truly yours? Why cling to possessions that will one day belong to someone else? Why fear change when change is the only constant? Non-ownership is not about rejecting life. It is about embracing it more fully. It is about living with gratitude for every gift, knowing it is precious precisely because it is temporary. When you live this way, you discover a new kind of freedom. You stop worrying about the future because you no longer demand that it preserve your attachments. You stop fearing loss because you no longer believe that anything can be truly lost. You stop clinging to identity because you know that who you are is beyond labels. You live lightly, freely, joyfully, and in this freedom, worry vanishes. So ask yourself, what am I clinging to that causes me worry? Is it a possession, a relationship, an image of myself, or a plan for the future? Can I hold it more gently, with love, but without fear? Can I see it as a gift instead of a possession, a visitor instead of an anchor? When you begin to live with these questions, you begin to live without chains. The truth is simple but profound. Nothing in life truly belongs to you, and that is not a cause for despair. It is the doorway to liberation. Because when you stop clinging, you stop worrying. When you stop worrying, you start living. You start loving more deeply, savoring more fully, and walking more freely. This is the gift of non-ownership. This is the freedom the Buddha pointed to. 17. Worry ceases. When you learn to trust the wisdom of impermanence, one of the most misunderstood truths of existence is impermanence. The human heart craves stability. The mind longs for permanence. We want our health to last, our relationships to never change, our successes to stay forever, and our possessions to remain secure. But life does not obey these desires. Life is movement. Seasons change, bodies age, relationships evolve, fortunes rise and fall, and even mountains crumble over time. Nothing in this world is fixed. At first, this reality frightens us. We resist it, deny it, and fight against it. And from this resistance, worry is born. We worry about losing what we have, and we worry about not getting what we want. But Buddhism reveals a liberating truth. Impermanence is not our enemy. It is our greatest teacher, and when we trust its wisdom, worry dissolves. Think of a flower blooming in the spring. Its beauty takes your breath away, yet you know it will not last. The The petals will fall, the stem will wither, and eventually it will return to the earth. If you cling desperately, trying to make the flower eternal, you will only suffer. But if you accept its impermanence, you cherish it more deeply while it lasts. You stop worrying about how long it will stay, and instead you enjoy the miracle of its presence. This is the wisdom of impermanence. It teaches you to love without clinging, to live without fear, and to appreciate without worry. Much of our anxiety comes from treating impermanence as a threat. We say, "What if my health fails? What if my loved ones leave me? What if my achievements fade?" Yet impermanence is not a possibility. It is a certainty. Everything changes. Everything passes. Worry does not prevent this. It only robs you of peace while you wait. But when you trust impermanence, you begin to see that change itself carries wisdom. It clears the old to make space for the new. It transforms endings into beginnings. It teaches you that loss is not the end of life, but part of its rhythm. Consider your own life. You have already lived through countless changes. The child you once were is gone. The teenager you once were has vanished. The person you were 10 years ago no longer exists. Each version of you passed away to make room for the next. And yet, here you are. Impermanence has not destroyed you. It has shaped you. It has carried you through growth, through transformation, through becoming. Every stage of your life was both an ending and a beginning. When you look back, you see that impermanence has always been your companion, not your enemy. The Buddha taught that clinging to permanence is like trying to grasp smoke. The tighter you hold, the more it slips away, and the more you suffer. Worry is exactly this grasping. It says, "I must hold on to this forever." But forever does not exist in the realm of form. Only change exists. To find peace, you must stop resisting change and start trusting it. Trusting impermanence means understanding that the waves of life will rise and fall, but the ocean remains. The forms will shift, but the flow continues. You are part of that flow, and it will always carry you forward. This trust in impermanence is not blind faith. It is wisdom born from observation. Look at the world around you. The sun rises and sets, seasons turn, rivers flow, and stars are born and die. Nothing remains the same. Yet in this constant change, there is harmony. The tree loses its leaves in autumn, and in spring it blossoms again. The river changes shape, yet it always finds its way to the sea. Impermanence is not chaos, it is order. It is the rhythm of life. When you worry, you resist this rhythm, as if demanding that the river stop flowing. When you trust impermanence, you flow with it, knowing it carries you exactly where you need to go. How does this trust dissolve worry in practical life? Imagine you are facing the fear of illness. The mind says, "What if my body fails? What if I cannot endure the suffering?" But impermanence reminds you that even illness changes. Pain rises and falls. Healing is possible. And even if health declines, impermanence ensures that no suffering is eternal. Every moment is new, every breath is fresh, and each stage of life transforms into the next. Worry adds weight to illness, but trust in impermanence lightens it because you know change is constant. Or imagine the fear of loss in relationships. You worry about separation, about being left behind, about death itself. But impermanence reminds you, you cannot own another person. They are a traveler on their own journey. Their presence with you is a gift, not a guarantee. Trusting impermanence does not mean you stop loving. It means you love more fully, because you know the time you share is precious. You stop worrying about the day it may end, and instead you cherish the day it is here. Love becomes deeper, not because it is permanent, but because it is fragile. Even with failure and success, impermanence brings freedom. You worry about holding on to success, fearing it will slip away. You worry about failure, fearing it will last forever. But impermanence reminds you that neither success nor failure is final. Both are temporary, both will pass, and neither defines your essence. Worry fades when you realize that change itself ensures renewal. The night always gives way to dawn. Meditation is a powerful way to experience impermanence directly. Sit quietly and observe your breath. Notice how each inhale rises and falls, how each exhale passes away to make room for the next. No breath can be held forever, yet you do not panic when you exhale. You trust that the next inhale will come. This is the wisdom of impermanence in action. Life is a series of breaths, moments, and experiences, each arising and fading. When you learn to rest in this flow, you stop worrying about holding on to what must pass. You learn to live in the rhythm of change. Worry also loses power when you realize that impermanence protects you as much as it challenges you. Imagine if pain were permanent, if grief never softened, if storms never ended. Life would be unbearable, but impermanence ensures that suffering too will pass. Your darkest nights eventually give way to morning. Your deepest wounds eventually heal. Your hardest moments eventually become memories. Worry convinces you that suffering will last forever. Impermanence reminds you that nothing does. This trust transforms how you meet every difficulty. Instead of fearing change, you accept it as part of life's wisdom. Instead of worrying about what might come, you rest in the knowledge that whatever comes will also go. Instead of resisting endings, you open your heart to the new beginnings they create. You stop clinging to the illusion of permanence and begin living in the truth of impermanence. And in this truth, worry loses its foundation. There is a story of a king who asked his wise advisors for a phrase that would bring him peace in both joy and sorrow. They returned with these words, "This too shall pass." The king carried this reminder with him always. In moments of triumph, it kept him humble. In moments of despair, it gave him hope. Impermanence was his teacher, showing him that all things, good and bad, are temporary. When you live with this awareness, worry cannot control you because you know that whatever you face, it too will pass. So ask yourself, what would your life feel like if you trusted impermanence completely? If you stopped worrying about holding on to what cannot be kept? If you stopped fearing the unknown, knowing that even the unknown will change? How much lighter would your heart feel if you surrendered to the truth that everything arises and passes away? The answer is simple. Worry would cease, not because life becomes certain, but because you stop demanding certainty. Not because change stops, but because you stop resisting it. Not because loss disappears, but because you understand it is part of the cycle of renewal. Trusting impermanence means trusting life itself. It means seeing that the flow of change is not your enemy. It is your path to peace. And so the teaching becomes clear. Worry ceases when you learn to trust the wisdom of impermanence. When you embrace change instead of fearing it. When you love fully without clinging. When you see each moment as precious because it will not last. You step into freedom. The storms may come, but you no longer resist them. The flowers may fade, but you cherish them more deeply. The days may end, but you live them more fully. This is the gift of impermanence. This is the end of worry. 18. Worry fades. When you stop living in illusions and see reality as it truly is. Worry thrives on illusion. It feeds on stories the mind creates about what might happen, what should happen, or what must never happen. These stories feel real, but they are not reality. They are shadows cast by thought, projections built from fear and expectations shaped by desire. The Buddha taught that suffering comes not from reality itself, but from our illusions about it. We suffer not because life is unbearable, but because we mistake our thoughts about life for life itself. When you learn to pierce through these illusions and see reality clearly, worry begins to fade. because you no longer live inside the mind's imaginary prisons. You live in truth. Think of a rope lying on the ground in the twilight. From a distance, you mistake it for a snake. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and your body is filled with fear. But when you look closer and see that it is only a rope, the fear vanishes instantly. The rope has not changed. You have simply seen it for what it is. This is how worry works. The mind mistakes ropes for snakes. It projects danger where there is none, and you suffer as if it were real. Awareness is the light that reveals the truth. When you shine that light on your fears, you see that most of them are ropes, not snakes. The first illusion that fuels worry is the illusion of certainty. The mind insists, I must know the future. I must be certain before I can be at peace. But the future does not exist yet. It cannot be known. It is only a collection of possibilities. Demanding certainty in an uncertain world is like demanding that the sea stop moving. The sea moves because it is alive, and life unfolds in the same way. Worry arises because you cling to an illusion that certainty is possible. Freedom arises when you accept reality. Uncertainty is the nature of existence. You cannot know tomorrow, but you can live this moment fully. The second illusion is the illusion of control. The mind tells you, if I think hard enough, if I plan carefully enough, if I worry enough, I can control everything. But how much of life is truly within your control? Can you control the weather, the choices of others, or the passage of time? Can you control the thoughts that arise in your own mind? Even that, not fully. Yet the mind clings to this illusion, and from it, worry grows. When you release the illusion of control, you stop exhausting yourself with impossible demands. You begin to act wisely on what you can influence and surrender the rest. And in this balance, worry dissolves. The third illusion is the illusion of permanence. You worry about losing health, wealth, relationships, or identity because you believe they should last forever. But nothing in this world is permanent. Everything changes. Worry arises when you demand that the impermanent be permanent. But when you see reality clearly, that change is the nature of life. You stop clinging. You stop worrying about keeping what cannot be kept. Instead, you cherish it while it lasts, knowing that its impermanence makes it precious. The fourth illusion is the illusion of self. The mind says, this is me. I am my body, my possessions, my reputation, my thoughts. And so you worry endlessly about protecting this fragile identity. But Buddhism teaches the truth of non-self. What you call me is only a collection of changing processes. Body, mind, feelings, perceptions, all arising and passing like waves. There is no fixed self to protect. When you see this truth, worry softens, because you realize that what you fear losing was never solid to begin with. You are not the wave, you are the ocean in which the waves rise and fall. To live in illusions is to live in constant fear. To live in reality is to live in peace. But how can you train yourself to see clearly? The practice begins with mindfulness. Each time a worry arises, instead of believing it immediately, pause and look at it. Ask yourself, is this true, or is this a story my mind has created? Often you will see that it is only a projection. The mind says, if I fail this exam, my life will be ruined. But is that true, or is it a story? Reality is simpler. You will take an exam, you may succeed or fail, and life will continue. The mind says, if this person leaves me, I will never survive. But is that true, or is it a story? Reality is simpler. People come and go, love can be painful. But you continue to live, and new connections form. By questioning your thoughts, you pierce through illusion and return to reality. Meditation deepens this practice. When you sit quietly, watching thoughts rise and fall, you begin to see that thoughts are not reality. They are events in the mind. Some are useful, many are not. Some are true, many are distorted. Thoughts are like clouds in the sky. They pass, but the sky remains. When you learn to rest as the sky instead of chasing every cloud, you stop being enslaved by illusions. Worry fades because you no longer confuse the cloud with the sky. Another powerful practice is to bring your awareness to the senses. Worry lives in the mind's stories. But when you return to what is directly here, the sound of birds, the feeling of breath, the colors of the world, you ground yourself in reality. The mind may say, "Disaster is coming." But look around. Is disaster here, right now? Or is it only in thought? The more you return to the senses, the more you realize that reality is rarely as frightening as your illusions. Understanding illusion also transforms how you meet suffering. Worry convinces you that suffering is permanent and overwhelming. But when you see clearly, you realize that suffering too is a process. It arises, stays for a while, and fades. Even grief, even fear, even pain, all of them change. Worry arises when you mistake suffering for eternity. Clarity arises when you see it as impermanent. There is a Zen saying, "Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water." This teaching points to the simplicity of reality. Life is not the endless maze of what if that the mind creates. Life is this step, this breath, this action. Chop wood, carry water, eat when hungry, sleep when tired. The illusions complicate life. Reality is simple. When you live in this simplicity, worry has no soil in which to grow. Imagine two people facing the same rainstorm. One sees the storm and says, "This is terrible. What if it floods? What if everything is ruined?" They suffer not only from the rain, but from their story about it. The other sees the storm and says, "It is raining." They take shelter, they adapt, and they move on. The difference is not in the rain. The difference is in the illusion. Worry magnifies, clarity accepts. So ask yourself, what illusions are feeding my worry? Do I demand certainty in an uncertain world? Do I cling to the illusion of control? Do I expect permanence where everything changes? Do I identify too strongly with a fragile sense of self? Each illusion adds weight to your mind. But when you see them for what they are, you stop carrying them. You stop living in shadows and step into the light of truth. This does not mean life becomes free of challenges. Reality still includes pain, loss, and change. But reality is never as unbearable as illusion makes it. Worry turns a small challenge into a mountain. Clarity sees the mountain for what it is and begins to climb. Worry convinces you that the snake is real. Clarity shows you it is a rope. The Buddha's path is often called awakening. To awaken is to wake up from illusions. Just as you awaken from dreams and see that they were not real, you awaken from the illusions of worry and see that they are not reality. You see that your fears are stories, your attachments are fragile, and your control is limited. But you also see that awareness, compassion, and peace are always available in the present. This awakening is freedom. And so the teaching becomes clear. Worry fades when you stop living in illusions and see reality as it truly is. Illusions multiply fear. Truth dissolves it. Illusions create chains. Truth breaks them. Illusions blind you. Truth opens your eyes. The more you live in reality, the less room worry has to grow. And in this clarity, you discover the peace that was always waiting beneath the noise. 19. Worry melts away when you learn the power of patience. Worry is a restless energy. It pulls your mind into the future, demanding answers before life is ready to give them. It makes you believe that if you can think fast enough, plan far enough, or predict accurately enough, you can outpace uncertainty. But worry is impatient. It does not know how to wait, how to breathe, how to trust the unfolding of time. Buddhism teaches that one of the greatest medicines for worry is patience. Patience is not laziness or inaction. Patience is strength. It is the calm confidence that allows you to stand firm even when the outcome is not yet clear. It is the wisdom of knowing that everything ripens in its own time, and no amount of worry can force the fruit to ripen faster. Consider a seed planted in the soil. You water it, tend to it, and wait. But if you dig it up every day, demanding to see progress, you kill it. Worry is like digging up the seed, constantly checking, doubting, and fearing that nothing is happening. Patience is allowing the seed to grow in its own season. You still nurture it, but you trust the process. You know that growth is invisible before it is visible, and that forcing only destroys. Life is the same. Relationships, goals, healing, even spiritual awakening, none of these happen instantly. They unfold slowly, often beyond your sight. Worry resists this. Patience embraces it. One of the reasons worry feels so exhausting is because it tries to rush life. You tell yourself, I must solve this now. I must succeed now. I must know now. But life does not follow the clock of your impatience. Life has its own rhythm. Patience means aligning yourself with that rhythm instead of fighting it. Imagine trying to make a river flow faster by shouting at it. You only tire yourself, but if you float with the current, you arrive where you need to be in time. Patience is that floating. The Buddha himself spoke often of patience, calling it one of the highest virtues. He compared it to a shield, protecting the mind from anger, fear, and worry. Patience is not passive endurance. It is active strength. It is the ability to remain steady without collapsing into panic. A patient mind is a calm mind, and a calm mind cannot be ruled by worry. Let us look at how patience dissolves worry in everyday life. Imagine you are waiting for news, an exam result, a job interview, a medical test. The mind begins to spin. What if I fail? What if it's bad news? What if everything falls apart? You check your phone again and again, your stomach twists and sleep eludes you. But notice what is really happening. The outcome does not yet exist. It is still forming. Worry tries to drag the future into the present before it is ready. Patience says, the result will come when it comes. I will meet it then, not now. This does not mean you do not care. It means you refuse to suffer for a reality that has not arrived. Patience also transforms how you meet challenges. When difficulties arise, the impatient mind says, this should not be happening. I must escape this immediately. Worry feeds on this resistance, but patience says, this is part of the path. I will endure. I will learn. I will grow. Suddenly, the weight lightens. Instead of being consumed by fear, you stand steady, like a mountain in a storm. The storm still rages, but the mountain does not collapse. Patience is that steadiness. Another way patience frees you from worry is by teaching you the art of timing. Not every action is best taken immediately. Some things require waiting for clarity, waiting for the right moment, waiting for conditions to align. Worry pushes you to act prematurely, to force decisions out of fear. Patience allows you to pause until wisdom is clear. How many mistakes in life come from rushing? How many regrets come from impatience? Patience does not mean inaction. It means wise action taken at the right time. Patience also deepens compassion. Much of our worry comes from frustration with ourselves. Why am I not further along? Why do I still struggle? Why am I not perfect yet? This self-criticism fuels endless anxiety. But patience with yourself brings peace. You understand that growth takes time, healing takes time, and learning takes time. You stop expecting instant transformation and allow yourself to unfold at your natural pace. Worry fades when you stop measuring yourself against impossible timelines. The same applies to others. You may worry about the behavior of loved ones, wanting them to change immediately. You may try to control or rush them, but this only creates tension. Patience means trusting their journey, just as you trust your own. It means offering support without clinging, guidance without force. When you live this way, worry about others softens, replaced by compassion and trust. Meditation is one of the greatest teachers of patience. When you sit, the mind resists. Thoughts race, the body fidgets, and you wonder, why am I not peaceful yet? But the practice itself is patience. Each time you return to the breath, each time you watch the mind without judgment, you are training yourself to wait, to endure, to accept. Over time, you see that peace does not come instantly. It comes gradually, like a dawn, slowly breaking the horizon. This lesson in meditation carries into life. You learn that everything ripens in its season, and that worry only clouds the process. Patience is also trust in impermanence. You understand that no storm lasts forever, no pain endures without end, no challenge is eternal. Worry tells you this will never change. Patience reminds you everything changes. By waiting, you allow change to happen. By rushing, you only suffer more. Patience is the wisdom that life heals itself in time, if you allow it. There is a parable in Buddhism about a farmer who worried constantly about his crops. He feared they would not grow fast enough, so each day he pulled at the shoots, trying to stretch them taller. But instead of growing, they died. The Buddha said, "You cannot hurry growth by pulling. You only destroy it." Worry is the pulling. Patience is the nurturing. When you practice patience, you allow life to unfold without strangling it with fear. Patience also frees you from the endless race of modern life. Everywhere you look, people are rushing, rushing to succeed, rushing to consume, rushing to prove themselves. This rushing creates collective worry, a culture of anxiety. But Buddhism invites you to step out of this race, to slow down, to breathe, to trust that you do not need to arrive anywhere else to be whole. When you walk slowly, eat mindfully, speak gently, and breathe deeply, you cultivate patience in daily life. And with patience comes peace. So how can you begin to practice patience right now? Start with small moments. When you are stuck in traffic, instead of worrying about being late, practice breathing and accepting the moment. When you are waiting in line, instead of scrolling anxiously, practice noticing your surroundings with presence. When you face a challenge, instead of demanding immediate results, remind yourself, this too will pass in its time. Each of these small acts trains your mind to release worry and rest in patience. The ultimate lesson of patience is this: you do not need to have everything now. You do not need to solve everything now. You do not need to know everything now. Life unfolds moment by moment, and each moment carries its own wisdom. Worry comes from demanding that the fruit ripen instantly. Peace comes from trusting that it will ripen when it is ready. So ask yourself, what would it feel like to live with patience, to stop rushing the future, to stop worrying about timelines you cannot control, to trust that everything comes, changes, and goes in its own time? Imagine how much lighter your heart would feel if you released the pressure of urgency. Imagine how much freer your mind would be if you trusted the rhythm of life. The answer is clear. Worry melts away when you embrace patience. The storms may still come, but you will endure them calmly. The uncertainties may still exist, but you will face them with trust. The challenges may still arise, but you will meet them with steadiness. Patience is the shield that protects you from worry, the anchor that grounds you in the present, and the wisdom that reminds you everything unfolds in its own time. And so the teaching becomes clear: cultivate patience, and you will cultivate peace. Trust the rhythm of life, and worry will lose its grip. Be patient with yourself, with others, and with the universe itself. Because the fruit ripens not when you demand it, but when it is ready. And when you learn to wait with peace, you discover a life free from the chains of worry. 20. Worry ends when you awaken to the present as your true home. At the root of worry lies displacement. The mind abandons the present moment and runs endlessly into the future or the past. It wanders into the shadows of what if and if only. It builds houses in places you cannot live. Tomorrow, next year, or a version of yesterday that no longer exists. Meanwhile, the present, which is the only place life truly happens, is left unnoticed, unattended, and unlived. The Buddha taught that peace is found when we come home to the present moment. This moment, right here, is your only true home. When you awaken to it fully, worry loses its grip, because worry cannot survive where you are truly present. To understand this, consider how much of your life has been lost to absent-mindedness. You eat, but you are not tasting. You are worrying about work. You walk, but you are not feeling the ground. You are lost in planning tomorrow. You sit with loved ones, but you are not hearing them. You are replaying arguments in your head. Life is happening now, but you are elsewhere. Worry feeds on this absence. It thrives when you abandon the present. But when you return, when you live fully in what is here, worry starves, because it cannot exist in reality. It only exists in imagination. The present moment has a simple, healing truth. Right now, in this breath, you are alive. Whatever fears you hold about tomorrow, whatever regrets you carry about yesterday, right now you are breathing. Right now you are here. Worry wants you to believe that peace lies in the future, when everything is solved, when everything is secure. But the future never comes as a finished product. It always arrives as now. If you cannot find peace in this breath, you will not find it in the next. The practice of awakening to the present is learning to find home in each moment, no matter its form. Imagine a traveler wandering the world, carrying heavy bags, always searching for a home. They walk through forests, cities, deserts, never resting, never arriving. Then one day they realize, home is not a place to be found in the distance. Home is where they stand. Home is this very step. The same is true for you. You wander endlessly through thoughts of tomorrow, carrying the heavy bags of worry, searching for peace somewhere else. But peace is not out there. Peace is here. Your home has always been the present. One of the reasons worry feels so convincing is because the mind tells you that the present is not enough. It says, you cannot rest yet. You must wait until things improve, until everything is certain, until the problems are solved. But when you believe this, you postpone peace forever. You are always waiting, always reaching, always restless. Awakening to the present means realizing that nothing is missing. Even in imperfection, even in uncertainty, this moment contains enough for you to rest, breathe, and be alive. When you truly see this, worry dissolves, because you no longer postpone peace to an imagined future. Meditation is one of the clearest paths back home. When you sit and focus on the breath, the mind resists. It tries to pull you into yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's fears. But each time you return to the breath, you return to the present. You discover that this breath is complete in itself. It does not need fixing. It does not need improvement. It simply is. The more you practice, the more you see that the present moment, like the breath, is always enough. You do not need to escape it. You only need to return to it. The Buddha described mindfulness as the direct path to freedom. Mindfulness means paying attention, fully, openly, without judgment, to what is happening right now. When you walk, you walk. When you eat, you eat. When you listen, you listen. In these simple acts of attention, worry has no room, because worry depends on leaving the moment. The more you cultivate mindfulness, the more often you find yourself at home in the present. And the more at home you are, the less you worry. Let us look at how this works in daily life. Imagine you are stuck in traffic, running late. Worry says, what if I miss the meeting? What if they think I'm irresponsible? What if everything goes wrong? Your heart races, your mind spirals. But the reality is simple. You are in the car, surrounded by vehicles, sitting still. That is all. The meeting does not exist yet. The judgment of others does not exist yet. The only reality is this moment. If you awaken to it, you might notice your breath, the shape of the clouds, the feel of the steering wheel. The situation may still be inconvenient, but worry fades because you are not lost in stories. You are present with reality. Or imagine lying in bed at night, unable to sleep. Worry fills your mind with fears about tomorrow. What if I fail tomorrow? What if I am too tired? What if I cannot handle it? But none of these fears are real right now. Reality is that you are lying in a bed, in a room, breathing. The rest is imagination. By bringing your awareness to the present, feeling your breath, listening to the quiet, you dissolve the illusions. Sleep may or may not come, but peace is available now. Awakening to the present also transforms how you experience joy. Too often you miss joy because you are elsewhere. You eat a delicious meal but rush through it, already worrying about the next task. You sit with a friend but are distracted by your phone. You watch a sunset but spend the time thinking about tomorrow's work. Joy is always here, but worry blinds you to it. When you awaken to the present, you taste more deeply, listen more fully, see more clearly. Worry fades because gratitude grows. One of the greatest gifts of the present is its simplicity. The future is overwhelming because it contains infinite possibilities. The past is heavy because it contains unchangeable regrets. But the present is always simple. Just this breath, just this step, just this moment. You do not have to live tomorrow now. You only have to live this instant. Worry multiplies because you try to live many moments at once. Peace comes when you live one moment at a time. There is a Zen story about a monk chased by a tiger. He runs until he comes to the edge of a cliff. Hanging from a vine, he looks down and sees another tiger waiting below. Above him, the tiger snarls. Below him, danger waits. Then he notices a strawberry growing nearby. Calmly, he plucks it, tastes it, and says, "How sweet." This story is not about denial of danger. It is about awakening to the present. The monk could have filled his last moments with worry, but instead he filled them with awareness. He chose to taste the sweetness of now. So how can you awaken to the present more often? Start by pausing throughout the day to notice where your mind is. If you find it wandering into tomorrow or replaying yesterday, gently guide it back. Use your senses. Feel your breath. Notice the ground beneath your feet. Listen to the sounds around you. Each act of awareness is a step back home. Over time, this becomes a habit. You begin to live more often in the present and less often in the illusions of worry. This practice also requires compassion. Do not scold yourself when you notice worry. Do not say, "I should not worry." Instead, gently remind yourself, the mind has wandered. Let me bring it back. Each return is a victory. Each return strengthens your ability to stay. Over time, you find that worry visits less often because you no longer feed it with attention. You feed presence instead. The deepest realization is this: the present is not just a place to visit. It is your true home. Everything you seek, peace, joy, love, wisdom, is found here. Worry takes you away from home. It makes you wander through empty houses of thought. But when you awaken, you see that you never needed to wander. Home was always here, in this breath, in this step, in this moment. So ask yourself, how much of my life have I missed by living in worry? How many meals eaten without tasting? How many conversations half heard? How many sunsets unseen because my mind was elsewhere? And then ask, what would it feel like to truly live here and now? to be at home in each moment without needing to escape to tomorrow, to walk through life with presence instead of worry? The answer is freedom. When you awaken to the present as your true home, worry ends. Not because life becomes perfect, but because you no longer abandon yourself. You live fully, here and now, where life actually happens. The storms may come, but you will meet them one moment at a time. The future may remain uncertain, but you will walk it step by step. And the past may carry lessons, but it no longer steals your today. This is the teaching. Worry ends not by solving tomorrow, but by coming home to today. The present is enough. The present is complete. The present is your true refuge. When you awaken to it, you discover that peace was never missing. It was only waiting for you to return. From the beginning of this journey, we have explored the nature of worry, what it is, how it forms, and why it holds such power over the human heart. We have seen that worry is not an external enemy. It is not a storm that falls upon us from the outside world. Worry is a creation of the mind, an illusion built from fear, attachment, and resistance. It is the voice that whispers, "What if?" in endless variations. It is the restlessness that refuses to rest, the impatience that demands certainty, the clinging that fears loss, and the illusion that confuses thought with truth. Yet we have also seen that worry is not necessary. It does not protect us. It does not prepare us. It does not prevent what it fears. It only steals our peace, blinds us to joy, and exhausts our spirit. And through each lesson we have traveled together, Buddhism has shown us that freedom from worry is possible, not by controlling life, but by changing how we meet it. You have learned that worry is an illusion of the mind, and illusions lose power when seen clearly. You have learned that worry grows when we cling to permanence, demand control, and resist impermanence. You have learned that the present moment is always complete, that surrender is strength, that patience is power, and that impermanence is wisdom. You have learned that life is not a threat, but a teacher, that illusions create chains while reality sets us free, and that faith in the unseen path is the antidote to fear. Together, these lessons form a single truth. You are not powerless before worry. You are not its prisoner. You are the awareness that sees worry arise and sees it fade. You are not the storm. You are the sky in which the storm passes. The Buddha described this awakening as freedom, freedom from the constant agitation of the mind, freedom from the illusions that create suffering, freedom from the restless need to control what cannot be controlled. This freedom is not found in the future, after all your problems are solved. It is found here and now in your ability to rest in the truth of this moment. Pause and consider, how much of your life has been stolen by worry? How many meals eaten without tasting, conversations had without hearing, days lived without presence? How many nights lost to fears of a tomorrow that never arrived? This is the cost of worry, not only suffering, but lost life. Yet even as you reflect, notice this. The present is still here. It was never lost. It is waiting for you now. You can begin again at any moment. This is the gift of awareness. Each time worry arises, you do not need to follow it. You can pause, breathe, and return. You can remember, this is only a thought, not reality. This is only fear, not truth. This is only a wave, not the ocean. Each return strengthens your freedom. Each return dissolves worry a little more, and with time you discover that you do not live at the mercy of worry anymore. You live anchored in presence, guided by wisdom and carried by trust. The path you have walked through these lessons is not a theory. It is a practice. It is something to be lived each day, in small acts of mindfulness, in moments of patience, in choices of surrender, in breaths of gratitude. It is not about eliminating all challenges. Life will still bring change, loss, uncertainty, and pain, but you will no longer meet them with worry. You will meet them with steadiness, openness, and courage. You will no longer waste your energy fearing what has not arrived. You will use your energy to live what is here. Remember the image of the leaf on the stream. You are not separate from life. You are not outside of its flow. You are the flow itself. Worry made you forget this truth, convincing you that you must fight, resist, and control. But awakening reveals that you were never separate, never unsupported, never alone. The river has always carried you. Even in your darkest moments, even in your deepest fears, it has carried you here, to this moment of awakening, this realization of freedom. And so the conclusion is clear. You do not need to be a slave to worry anymore. You have seen its illusions. You have tasted the peace of presence. You have touched the strength of surrender. You have discovered the wisdom of impermanence. You have learned that life is a teacher, not a threat, and that faith is stronger than fear. The storms of life may still come, but you will no longer be dragged by them. You will stand like a mountain, bend like a tree, and flow like a river. Worry may still whisper, but you will hear it as an echo, not a command. You will live not in fear of tomorrow, but in the fullness of today. You will not waste your life in illusions, but awaken to reality as it is. This is the freedom beyond worry. This is the peace the Buddha pointed to. It is not somewhere far away. It is here, in this breath, in this step, in this moment. All you must do is return again and again until the present becomes your true home. And when you live in this way, you will discover something extraordinary. Worry was never stronger than you. It only seemed strong because you forgot who you were. You are not the restless mind. You are not the fearful stories. You are the awareness that sees them all, the sky vast enough to hold every storm. And in that vastness, peace is always waiting, patient, steady, and free.